Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here. Hello, everyone. With another Snowflake watches the BBC election debate. The date and time of this is the 8th of June 2024 at 9 a.m. Saturday morning. This is very different. Time slot for me. How are you guys all doing? I hope you're all doing well. We are live streaming both on twitch.tv and on YouTube as well. If we are going to go quite the marathon today, I'm not going to lie, it is going to be quite a marathon. I don't know if because this went an hour and a half, I don't know how long, if the computer is going to handle it. But we managed to handle 2.5 hours, so cross fingers, the computer will manage it here. I've got one or two funny videos to help break it up as well, this debate. I know most of you have already watched it, but we're going to watch it again here on this channel, and we're going to dive into it. We were watching along on Discord. I know some of you guys were watching it from Big Madge's point of view, some of you were watching it from Labour Social point of view, some of you may have watched it from No Justice's point of view, and some of you may have just watched it straight from the BBC. I'm perfectly aware about the copyright issue. That's why this live stream is not monetized. So if anyone if anyone wants to give any super chats or any gifted memberships or anything like that, it would be greatly appreciated, because obviously I'm not going to make any money whatsoever from this live stream today, guys. It would really be appreciated. I just asked in today's live YouTube chat poll, asking who performed best at the debate. I only was able to put 3 and then another one there. So I put Nigel Farage, Carla Denver, or Stephen Flynn. The reason why I put Nigel Farage in there is because a lot of people thought that Nigel Farage performed well, despite all this. And I'm going to apologise, because I was supposed to practice the Plaid Cymru's Plaid Cymru candidate's name. So, and I I have not done that. So I need to pay attention to the host when she mentions his name. When Angry Pagan, good to see you. I was there lurking in Bowler Hatman's morning walk. There, I was there. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Stephen Banker is also here. Good morning to you. Good morning, Sir Larry the Cat. Hope you've done your daily number 2 outside. I would say daily number 2 outside number 10, but it's not going to be Sunak to clean up as the clock strikes down now, is it? Yoli, good to see you there as well. Hope you're doing well. Sending Graham a loose-fitting set of Speedos in his current ones are way too tight, says Sir Larry the Cat. Yes, indeed. The gang is here to watch along as well, so they will obviously be interested in this debate as well. But let's. His name sounds like Reen, apparently. Well, I'll let the host speak for it. So let me just get this set up for you guys. So I have got a feed. If this feed, for whatever reason, has any issues, I've got a backup one as well here. But let me make sure it. I want to make sure I avoid. Well, it doesn't really matter if I've got sound or not, to be fair. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm just going to pause the desktop audio, because I just want to make sure. I mean, I'm going to get copyright either way. Okay. All right, guys. Let me know what the volume is like. I've got the chat up here on my mobile device, so I can see you guys. Good morning, Mark. I hope you're doing well. Welsh guy's name is I'm not unless you put that in the super chat, I'm not going to try and say that. But if you want to try and pronounce that yourself, you're more than welcome to do so. Anyway, let's dive into this, guys.
Good evening to all of you watching, and to our live audience here in the BBC Radio Theatre at Broadcasting House in London. With less than 4 weeks to polling day, the parties with us tonight are here because of their performance in recent elections and their standing in opinion polls. The invitation was for leaders or leading figures to take part. And tonight, the 7 debaters with us are: for the Conservatives, Penny Mordaunt, the leader of the House of Commons; the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage; Labour's Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner; Reen ap Iorwerth, the leader of Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales;
Green ap Iorwerth,
co-leader of the Green Party of England and Wales; the Liberal Democrats' Deputy Leader, Daisy Cooper, and the Scottish National Party's Westminster Leader, Stephen Flynn.
I do like I do like some of them dress their colours for their political parties, like Carlo in the green and Angela Rayner in the red there. Interesting choice of colour for Daisy Cooper, going with the pink there, not yellow. Interesting choice there.
Now, the parties drew lots to decide their position on stage, and they stand before an audience who have been chosen by the pollsters Savanta. They come from many different backgrounds, reflecting voters from across Great Britain. They include supporters of the 7 parties represented here, as well as some undecided voters. They may come to this with strong views, or they may find themselves persuaded by something they hear from the stage. And the questions that you will hear in the next 90 minutes will come from the audience. The time will go fast. We need to make sure all 7 get their say, and there will be times that I move them on or call a halt. Meanwhile, journalists and other representatives of the parties are gathered in our spin room, where there will be reaction to the live debate. And so, to the first of tonight's questions, and it comes from Francis Gottesman.
As we celebrate D-Day and remember those like my father and so many others who served this country so well, how will the parties ensure our army is ready and our country is safe from another major conflict?
Thank you, Mr. Gottesman. And let me turn first to Angela Rayner for Labour.
Just before I hear that, obviously, we know that because obviously we have already watched this as well. We know that this is just going to end up turning mostly into an attack on Rishi Sunak for not being there at the D-Day's memorial, and I have a video specifically on that coming up. I believe it will drop on Monday on that on that specifically. But what I will say is that they weren't really. I would say all the parties were not very clear about what they're going to do to ensure to keep the country safe, and what they're going to specifically about what they're going to do. If I felt when I was listening to it last night, but let's hear what Angela says on this.
Thank you, Francis, and thank you to all those that have served in our armed forces and continue to do so in what is a very, insecure world at the moment. First of all, Labour's committed to the triple lock on nuclear deterrent, especially in the climate that we're in, which means we will keep our nuclear deterrent, that we will make sure that the 4 submarines are built in Barrow, and that we will continue with the upgrades. We will have a commitment to the 2.5% spending of GDP, which obviously is very important. And I think one of the other things that is a real scandal at the moment. And
I know she's going to go down to Sunak there, but they're obviously committed to keeping Trident, committed to the nuclear submarines, and she just said there, and I haven't heard Labour say this until now, that obviously they're going to keep to the 2.5% defence of GDP. Not really saying about how they're going to fund that, but they said they are committed to that defence. To be fair,
moment is our armed forces and the accommodation that they're given.
Yes, and that was I covered that in an article that our veterans, some of them in some of the accommodation has been absolutely atrocious. We also know that there's some veterans that are also been badly looked after after their time in service as well. So that's something that there's something else. They said this last week, so One Angry Pagan. I'm surprised it wasn't highlighted in any articles if that was the case, but I'm surprised it wasn't highlighted in any articles. So obviously I missed that, but yeah, they veterans this is I do feel like they have been left behind after 14 years without a doubt, and I do hope Labour does address these issues.
So we will look at that issue as well. We want to make sure that everyone has secure, decent homes in the UK.
Daisy Cooper for the Liberal Democrats.
Well, the Liberal Democrats are the party of Paddy Ashdown, so it won't surprise you to know that we take defence very seriously. So first of all, we would maintain the nuclear deterrent that we have. An absolute priority for us is reversing the cuts to our troops of 10,000, which has happened under the Conservatives. We would increase spending on defence year on year.
She just said they will reverse the troop cutting. Well, what exact? They said they will reverse it. Well, she said they will reverse it from the Conservatives. How would you reverse that exactly? How exactly would you reverse that? Is a question there.
In the next Parliament, with the ambition of reaching 2.5% by the end of the next Parliament. Having decent homes for our veterans and for our armed forces is incredibly important. I'm very proud of the fact that it was a Liberal Democrat amendment that tried to make sure that that every single home met the decent home standard. It was only because this general election was called that particular piece of legislation fell, but it's a priority for us in the next Parliament.
I think apart from that, I think very solid points there from Daisy Cooper and the Lib Dems.
Nigel Farage, Reform UK.
Well, Francis, you're right to ask the question. We're spending less on defence than we were in the last year of the Labour government. Pro rata, the army has shrunk from 100,000 to 72,000. Recruitment is catastrophic. So rather than having a weird concept of national service where 30,000 youngsters would do a year, we need to recruit 30,000 people into the army full-time. And yes, the veterans point's been made already. Respect our veterans, including those with the average age of 100 who were deserted by the Prime Minister in Normandy yesterday, which I think was a complete and utter disgrace and shows us we actually have a very unpatriotic Prime Minister. It was dreadful.
But Penny Mordaunt.
It didn't really say about what he would do. He said, right, we need to recruit more. Well, no real terms of detail there. But it was a very simple message, and obviously him using the battering of what happened with Rishi Sunak, obviously, and she's just going to go to Penny Mordaunt now. That obviously puts Nigel Farage in a good viewpoint, even if we don't like him. The Trident irritants is a strange talking point. It's not like the UK could fire those things without USA's permission anyway. Says Jolly there. Mark says if they wanted a nuclear deterrent, they can move it out of Scotland. Yeah, I know how you guys feel about that. Don't worry, I'm pretty sure Stephen Flynn brings that up as well.
Can you respond to that? Rishi Sunak leaving the D-Day commemorations before the end of the day?
What happened was completely wrong, and the Prime Minister has rightly apologised for that. Apologised to veterans, but also to all of us, because he was representing all of us. I'm from Portsmouth. I've also been Defence Secretary, and my wish at the end of this week is that all of our veterans feel completely treasured. And I'm hoping tonight to convince you of some things that are important to them, important to their legacy. And I couldn't do that if I wasn't straight with you on that issue.
Would you have left D-Day early?
I didn't go to D-Day. I think what happened was very wrong. I think the Prime Minister...
It's a very simple question. Surely you would say, considering your position and ministers and you yourself being in the armed forces of your history as well, surely you would say I would not have. I would have said what I would have said. Yeah, in order to not make Sunak look bad and to make yourself look good, I would have said I would not have personally done it. That's what I would have said. So to make myself look good here, if she generally wants to be the next Conservative leader, she has to show strength there. And instead, she ducked from this moment and tried to continue to defend Sunak. She missed an opener there, in my opinion.
Has apologised for that. But what I also think is important is we honour their legacy. They fought for our freedom. Unless we are spending the right amount on defence, we can't honour that legacy. The baseline for our equipment programme is 2.5%. If you're not committed to spending that over the period it needs to be spent, you are not funding defence. And I have to just mention also, the cornerstone of our defence is our nuclear deterrent. And you need more than submarines, sailors and warheads to deliver that. You need credibility. And it's too late for Labour on credibility. Angela Rayner voted recently, along with the guy that wants to be your foreign secretary and half the Labour front bench, to end our nuclear deterrent.
It's true that she did vote that. It is true, but they have changed that. They have changed they obviously those in cabinet have changed that position, but it is yeah. But not only the head of Angela there.
Doubting that they would use that force, and she might be Prime Minister in 4 or 5 years' time.
I like that she thinks that. I cannot I just don't see the Labour Party with the people within the party. I cannot see her as a prime minister not because I don't think she would be a good prime minister. I just think the party would not want her overall as a as it. But maybe I'm laughing now, but perhaps in 5 years' time it'll come back to bite me. But I don't think so.
If you are doubting that she or David Lammy or Keir Starmer would use that, imagine what Putin is thinking. Without credibility, we become a target. If we become a target, you are less safe. It's too late for this generation of Labour politicians. That credibility is shot. Do not vote these people in.
Well, we're not going to be voting you in, that's for sure. Not bigging up the 14 years of rule from the Conservatives, are you, Mrs. Mordaunt, are you?
Lorena, would you like to respond to that?
Penny, you can keep pointing at me, but you're the party that have cut the armed forces, crashed the economy and left us in a real mess. Keir has been absolutely clear. I am absolutely clear. We will keep our nuclear deterrent and we will invest in it into the future.
It doesn't matter
we
what you're prepared to
absolutely
spend.
Clear on that.
It doesn't matter how many submarines.
Penny can argue all she wants, but the fact is that what Angela Rayner said is true. You guys crashed the economy. You guys have cut our armed forces. It's you're the ones who are in charge. You're the ones who've been in power for 14 years, and it's great points from Angela Rayner there. This is just trying to score cheap shots at Labour and trying to undermine them in every opportunity they do so, instead of taking ownership and responsibility for their last 14 years there.
You stand next to and have your photograph taken. If your foe does not believe that you will use these weapons, the deterrent is gone. And that's the position you're in. Serious stuff. This is what will happen if you elect these people.
We've become a laughing stock internationally because of your party. Keir Starmer has changed the Labour Party. We're very clear on our number one priority is to protect our.
Let me bring in some more parties on this question.
My brother was served in Iraq. I won't be lectured on whether or not I'm absolutely committed to the security of our country.
Then you're not better in.
The question, Mr. Gottesman's question was, how will the parties ensure our army is ready and our country is safe from another major conflict? Carla Denyer, how would the Green Party ensure that?
Well, first of all, I want to say we all owe a huge debt to our veterans, those from D-Day and those from conflicts since. And it's a tragedy that so many veterans then often struggle in life. There's high rates of homelessness, and that's something that's a high priority for myself and the Greens to tackle. In terms of defence more broadly, this election is about choosing what kind of country we want to be. And of course, part of that is security. We live in uncertain and dangerous times with war on our European borders and major threats from cyber attacks that don't care about geographical boundaries. The threats should not be underestimated. But the biggest threat facing the UK and the world is climate change. And
I will just say this, though. The only thing about her speech which I'm liking so far, right, is she's looking too much on piece of paper here. She needs to memorize what she needs to be saying there just a little bit more. That's my only niggle with this. That's all. But I understand there's a lot of her to memorize and a lot for her to take in, though. That's the only thing.
Militaries, interestingly, are taking this threat extremely seriously.
So in answer to the question, how would you ensure our army is ready, do you not want to see the size of the army grow, and you do not want to see defence spending go up to 2.5% of GDP?
Well, let's look for a moment at why we're talking about that number. As members of NATO, we are rightly asked to contribute a fair amount towards the defence budget. That's totally fair enough for NATO to ask for that, but the UK is already contributing the 2% that NATO asks. That doesn't mean, however, that we couldn't be spending that money more effectively. And as Greens, we're clear that investing in tackling climate threats, the biggest threat facing humanity, as militaries all over the world are already doing, because they recognise that if not tackled adequately, it will increase conflicts over water, for example, increase famine, and create millions of refugees.
Let me turn then to Stephen Flynn.
I will just say there that obviously, so it's pretty clear that the Greens aren't going to commit to the 2.5% of defence GDP. They're literally saying that. literally saying that, because they would rather stick to the minimum target that NATO would require, that they would stick to the minimum target at least, rather than actually commit to the 2.5% that everybody else is. And their position is, yes, we do take security and military seriously, but we're not committed like Labour and the Conservatives are to 2.5%. That for some people, if those who had served in the army and military defence, that may sting a few people because they want them to commit to that same level as everybody else. So that might make that position as well. But also there will be some people, obviously, like that they highlighted the homelessness and the issues around veterans as well at the start. But so there are some positives and maybe one or two negatives from her there.
Of the SNP, the nuclear deterrent, the submarines are based in Scotland. You are against maintaining the nuclear deterrent there?
Yes, absolutely. And our party's had a very long-standing tradition in respect of that, because we believe that money can be better spent on conventional defence forces. And what we've seen in Europe over the course of recent years is that how absolutely vital conventional defence forces are. But may I just return to the original question and thank Francis for his father's contribution. We need to be standing with our veterans. We need to make sure that our military is fully funded and that we have more people serving and that we look after them when they become veterans. And just finally on the Prime Minister, a Prime Minister who puts his own political career before public service is no Prime Minister at all. A Prime Minister who puts his own political career before Normandy war veterans is no Prime Minister at all. So it's incumbent upon all of us to do our national service and vote the Tories out of office.
Breen Apyorworth of Plaid Cymru.
Yesterday was a sobering day again, wasn't it, in remembering the sacrifice made on the beaches of Normandy. It certainly wasn't a day for staged photo ops, as we saw from Nigel Farage.
No, hang on a second.
Yes.
I raised £100,000. I raised £100,000 for the London Taxi Charity to send veterans back to Normandy. That's why I was there. Thank you.
And it's
That's a very terrible shot he tried to make on Nigel Farage, to think that he was there for a photo opportunity. And obviously Nigel Farage had himself covered there, and that made him look Farage look good. Regardless of how you might think of him, the fact that he's put that out there, whether it's true or not, is obviously you can argue. But people will say, hey, at least he's just said that he's obviously raised money for veterans. You're not gonna bash someone raising money for veterans, are you? Whether it's true or not is relevant. He's put it out there, and in my opinion, in my viewpoint, because again, like I've said before in the other debate, guys, you have to put yourself in the shoes of someone who is undecided. Try to put yourself from somebody who's watching from home, who don't pay attention to politics. They will look at that and they'll say, that wasn't a very good shot, cheap shot to try and make it Nigel Farage, despite him being a bit of a controversial figure. Just saying, guys.
It certainly wasn't a day for a Prime Minister to decide, as Stephen said, that his priority should be to fight for his own political future. We have a proud record in Wales of sending young men and women to the armed forces, and we need to make sure that the armed forces are properly funded for conventional deterrence and peacekeeping, and we need to look after those young people when they leave the armed forces with so many problems in housing and mental health issues and so on. But we don't build that resilient conventional force by spending £200 billion on a new nuclear deterrent.
Thank you. Penny Mordaunt, to come back to you, I mean, clearly there's been a lot of comment already about the Prime Minister in D-Day and that amounting to no presence at all. Amounting to no presence at all on D-Day. How did...
Yes, I do see the Twitch comments live out of curiosity. Yes, I do. I can see how Scotland isn't all keen on maintaining nuclear deterrent in England. Says Yostix there. Yes, I am on Twitch as well. I did say at the start, but yes, it's totally good. Just have a quick look. Yes, I am. Yeah, yes. Akismad, good morning. Good to see you there. You're a madman. What do you mean I'm a madman? No, I'm not a madman. Don't be silly.
did you feel when you realised that he had attended the British event and other parts of the day, but he left before the international event at the end of the day?
Look, I think what happened was very wrong, and I'm glad the Prime Minister has said that, and he's apologised. He's apologised to veterans, but I think he also has apologised to everyone, because he was there representing us. And what I hope is that our veterans will feel treasured.
And so was the future Prime Minister. Keir Starmer was also there. Guess what? He stayed throughout the whole day. And there was pictures of him speaking to lots of veterans, as well as speaking to some of the world leaders as well. Whatever you might think of Keir Starmer, he was there. He was there in person. And Nigel Farage, again, whatever you think of Nigel Farage, he was there as well. They were there giving their time. So there's not really any excuses for Sunak.
And their families will feel treasured at the end of this week. I don't want this issue to become a political football, because I think that does them a
Well, it already is. It already is, because the veterans themselves are speaking out saying he's let the country down. And to say that it's a mistake, if his instinct was the same as the British people, he would never have contemplated for a moment not being there for the big international ceremony. And it shows how disconnected he is with the people of this country.
Well
he's
said,
apologised.
I think what we saw from the Prime Minister was panic, and I think it's the same pre-election panic that gave us that back of a fag packet plan for a new national service, which those in the armed forces have said that wouldn't be workable, let alone what it means about what the Prime Minister thinks of our young people in this country.
Let's be clear about what happened yesterday. It was not only politically shameful, but I think many of us feel personally quite insulted. I started yesterday morning watching a recording made by the Royal Mint of my late grandfather, where he recounts catching his best friend who fell from the top of a Sherman tank, who was shot in the head. And as he waded through the water, he recounted in his words, men blown to pieces, hands, legs, and heads. If he had been there yesterday and seen the Prime Minister walk away from him, I would have found that completely, as I do now, find it completely and utterly unforgivable.
Thank you very much.
That's pretty brutal. Very brutal from Daisy Cooper. I wish you hadn't said about the pieces and that. I don't want that imagery in my head, and I'm sure you guys didn't want that in your head on a Saturday morning either. So I kind of wish you hadn't said that, but at the same time, she said what needed to be said about how she feels about it, and a lot of people generally will personally be feeling that as well. That's just really like a real hammering from many of the candidates on there, right on top of Penny Mordaunt, and rightfully so.
Very much for
good morning, Mad Monk.
The responses. That was our first question. Let us turn now to our second, and it comes from Ishani Rudra.
So, I'm about to start studying medicine at the University of Manchester. How will the parties ensure I can graduate into a fully functioning NHS?
Thank you,
good.
Ishani. So just about to start studying medicine at Manchester University. Daisy Cooper.
Well, first of all, really good luck. I hope it goes incredibly well. We need lots of people signing up and studying to become the medics and our NHS staff of the future. Look, under the Conservatives, our health and social care services have been driven into the ground. And the Liberal Democrats have a very clear plan as to how to fix this. We're going to fix the front door to the NHS with 8,000 more GPs, giving you a guarantee of an appointment within 7 days. We're going to put an end to dental deserts. We'll have a mental health community hub in every single community. And we've made a very bold pledge to fix and to offer free personal care.
I like the mental hub thing. I really like that from the Lib Dems. That sounds very good, especially when we have a mental health crisis in the UK. Well, in particularly here in England, I very like that at all. As for the numbers about the GPs and whatnot, obviously we don't know the full details of that, but these are very good. These are very good things coming out from Daisy. I do like some of these ideas.
That means you can get the help you need when you need it. We can fix the back end to the NHS by making sure that if you need to leave hospital, there will be care in
What's
place.
the total annual cost of all the changes you're making?
So we have set out in our manifesto exactly how every single pledge is going to be funded. But we've said right across the piece, across all of our policies, we will not tax struggling families during a cost of living crisis, but we will be looking to those really big companies raking in billions of pounds of profits to support struggling families and to fix our public services.
Okay. Health is, of course, a devolved issue, devolved to the UK nation. Stephen Flynn, your party's in charge of health in Scotland. It is a time of record waits and high numbers of people waiting, for example, 12 hours or more in A&E or 24 months for treatment. How would you ensure that Ishani graduates into a fully functioning NHS?
Just before Stephen answers that, I think there, like what Daisy Cooper was saying, there was some really great points. And obviously, for obviously as most, I'm sure most of my viewers who are from Scotland know that the NHS in Scotland is run and funded differently to other matters. And yes, while of course I would say NHS Scotland has its own challenges, it is remarkably run. It is doing a lot better than the other nations of the United Kingdom, and I think let's be very, very clear about that. Of course, there are always rooms to improve and always things that they can do to improve on that. I don't think anyone can deny that, but they are doing a lot better than England and Wales respectively.
Yes, well, Ashani, good luck to start with. As someone who was under the care of the NHS from the age of 14 to 32 because I was a disabled man, and I physically wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for the wonderful treatment that I received from the NHS. I know what it is to live in chronic pain, and I know what it is to have that chronic pain removed. And it's only thanks to the NHS that happened, which is why in Scotland we don't just have record funding, we don't just have the best paid nursing staff, we don't have no strikes, don't have a single NHS strike in Scotland. And of course we do have some of the best performing NHS levels in Scotland as well. But given that you're going to university to study medicine, I think it's also important to remind everyone in this audience the difference between the SNP and the Westminster parties, because in SNP-controlled Scotland, you wouldn't pay a single penny in tuition fees for your studies. What a difference that would make to your education and your future.
Very good. Very good.
You do accept that you have...
Very good. Yep. Why are you not doing this, Westminster? Why are you not doing this? Very nice from Stephen Flynn there. Absolutely. Why are people paying for that?
Record waits for treatment at the moment, and that there are very high numbers of people waiting 24 months or waiting sometimes as long as 24 hours in A&E.
And indeed, nobody would seek to dismiss the challenges which exist in our NHS right across these aisles, primarily driven through two issues. One, the backlog from COVID, but secondly, the austerity agenda, which is impacting us from Westminster and has done over the course of the last 14 years. And there's £18 billion of cuts coming down the line, agreed to by Angela Rayner and Penny Mordaunt. The Tories and the Labour both know that they're going to cut public sector investment to come, and that's going to have dramatic consequences on the NHS in the devolved nations, because as Wes Streeting himself said, when it comes to NHS waiting times, all roads lead back to Westminster. It's why the cuts that are coming down the line aren't acceptable, and it's why the Labour Party need to change their stance.
Angela Rayner, cuts coming down the line?
Well, that's not true, because we've said that we'd end the non-dom loophole.
Are you disagreeing with the IFS, Angela?
We would end the non-dom loophole so that we can bring that money in and have 40,000 new appointments every week.
But you're familiar with what Stephen is referring to. The IFS saying that both of your parties are not being honest because of the promises that you've made to bring debt down.
Then
he's absolutely right there. The policy that Wes Streeting, who's going to be the next health secretary, he's planned to bring in more private healthcare to help bring down the waiting list. But there's to say that there's a space of some sorts there for them to help bring it down. Is that really going to make the difference in terms of bringing down the waiting list for the NHS? Is that really a plan that's going to work? Is questions. It does raise eyebrows, obviously, for some people, but the caveat that people can that Labour can always argue is that the NHS waiting lists have always been lower under their watch in power. That is the one thing that has always been under a Labour government. And when you have a choice, when it comes to your healthcare and you have to choose between a Conservative government looking after your National Healthcare Service or a Labour one, you're going to pick Labour every single time. The statistics and the facts speak for themselves of how the NHS has been run under a Labour government.
NHS. And then Ashani, thank you for studying in Manchester. I'm biased, but I'd say it's the greatest city. But I do think that there is an issue that since the Tories took power, I was a home care worker and I represented public sector workers across the Northwest and nationally, and the decimation of the social care services and the infrastructure around community services has actually not only left us without that community care, but it costs more in the NHS. Far too many people, especially our older generation, we've just been talking about D-Day and our veterans, they're on trolleys for hours on end not getting the care they need, but it costs more money to do that. So we would put home care services in, it costs less to do that, and we would have 40,000 new appointments every week in the NHS by making sure we close that non-dom tax loophole.
The non-dom is not going to close the £18 billion fiscal gap which the Institute for Fiscal Studies says exists. There is a conspiracy of silence between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in relation to this. You need to explain to the public how you are going to close that gap without making NHS services worse.
They will... He is right in saying that, how they're going to close, because there is going to be a funding gap here for them to do that. But I generally believe that the Labour Party do care about our NHS, but I do worry about the path that they are going down in terms of the use of more privatisation. But Stephen Flynn is right to ask like where the funding for this is coming from. But I don't expect Labour to be very clear about it all, and it'll be much clearer once the manifestos are out.
We have been very clear that we're going to look at efficiencies as well, so we can have technologies. We would have technologies that will come in. We all know that that would help. We've said about closing the non-dom tax loophole, which would give us more appointments, whether that's through dentistry, GP, and with hospital appointments. We have the record number of waiting lists in the country now, and all roads lead to the Tories and what they've done to our public services.
And how is your fiscal plan different?
Let's get Penny.
There is that. I know where Steve. I'm glad. I know Stephen Flynn's obviously rightfully so. He's got to take shots at Labour, especially obviously because for those up in Scotland. I totally get that. But Angela Rayner, rather than directly like taking on Stephen Flynn's question there, she's playing it safe. She doesn't want to compromise too much of her position and the Labour's polling position right now, and just emphasise, look, you're going to be like the kind of the point really she's making there. Look, in terms of the healthcare service, if you want a change, you're gonna be choosing between either another 5 years of the Conservatives, or you're going to put the NHS in our hands. And whatever you might think of the Labour 14 years ago, it was in a much better position than it was now. Yes, I'd say regardless of whoever, it's going to be an immense challenge for Labour to turn things around when it comes to the NHS. But obviously there is that question of they are concerned, obviously, Stephen's rightfully concerned about what's going to be kind of the budgets and sort of thing in Scotland. I hope Labour do not tinker with anything with the NHS in Scotland. I think I'd be absolutely furious if they do. I don't believe they will, but I can be wrong on that as well. But
Penny Morden to respond to that.
So Manchester's second only to Portsmouth, and we're just about to have both a dental school and a medical school very shortly, and good luck with your studies. Your future colleagues are currently dealing with an increase in NHS workload of about...
I just want to say, I 100% agree with you. I've said numerous times, Mark, about how much I don't trust West Street neither. I've said it numerous times on the channel, so I'm totally with you on that.
About 43%. That's the legacy of the pandemic that we have to deal with. So there are many things we need to do, but there are two really important things. We have to keep the budget strong. You need a strong economy to do that, and public spending is going to go up.
Who crashed the economy, Penny? You're right. We need a strong economy. Who crashed the economy, guys? I wonder who crashed the economy that made it so difficult for you to have a strong budget for the NHS, guys. Does anybody know? I just can't quite put my finger on it, you know.
It will go up, and for the NHS, very substantially. The only people on this platform who have ever cut the NHS budget are Labour in Wales. They've cut it 4 times, and that's why they're...
Blame Wales! Blame Wales. We have to blame Wales. We can't blame ourselves, so we have to blame Wales for the NHS. That's all they can do, guys. Sorry, I have to shout there just to get it off my chest.
Waiting lists are 4 times longer than they are in England.
NHS
Not only
funding
can
is going
you
down
not
when you account
afford
for ageing and
a
inflation.
Labour government, the NHS can't afford it either. But the second thing we also need to do is increase the number of healthcare professionals we have. We have been doing that. We have 70,000 more nurses, for example. But we need to retain people in the service. We've got to take the stress off people.
You know how you retain the service of people, Penny? Do you want to know how you retain the services? Yeah? Obviously, you guys have dealt with most of the strikes. There's still the junior doctor strike you still have to do. But you want to know the best way to retain them? Giving them a decent pay, decent wages. You know, giving them fair, decent wages is one of the best ways of maintaining the staff that we have. You know, and guess who's been negotiating that? You guys. You know, and unfortunately, those many who are in the NHS are switching to private or going abroad because they're getting better. They can get better pay elsewhere. So why should they stay in our national healthcare service if you're not going to give them a decent, fair wage? You're the ones, who set the bar on that.
But we also have to remove barriers to them continuing
You do
in service.
acknowledge, don't you,
Labour's
that the
plans
pandemic is not
to tax
completely
your
part of
future
waiting
pension,
lists. They were rising
senior
before.
nurses and
Yes.
doctors is going
Well
to get
said by the
healthcare
host.
professionals to leave the service.
Penny,
that is going to lead to more waiting
Penny,
lists.
that's
The trouble
rubbish.
is recognise that we need a nuclear deterrent in this country, Angela.
And so
she's
do
still
I.
got the edge
And
on
so
you.
do I.
Okay.
But your sons do not have.
We need to
Your
hear
sons
from
do
all
not have.
parties. Penny Morton, I'm going to go to Rena Pureworth next.
I'm going to be very nice with Ashani. My life may be in your hands one day, but thank you for studying medicine and do enjoy it. I mean, I have a privilege of speaking for Wales here this evening, but hopefully what I say will have relevance for people wherever they are in the UK. I think one thing you want is an assurance about what kind of NHS we will have in future, and my party is absolutely clear. The NHS should and must remain free at the point of need. Another key principle for me and Plaid Cymru is that no profit should be taken out of the NHS. We will not consider ever privatising the NHS, something that, of course, the Conservatives want to do, but remarkably Labour are happy to see privatisation within the NHS now.
Let's be very clear about let's be very clear about at this moment in time. Let's be very clear about the privatisation when it comes to the point on Labour here. Now, Labour have said that they will use this. This is what Rush Streeting specifically said. Okay, Labour will use private healthcare to help bring down the backlogs. That is what he has said. Now, there is also obviously been the stories and the rumour and innuendos of perhaps private healthcare companies sending donations and whatnot to certain Labour shadow ministers and Rush Streeting as well. We don't know for certain if Labour are going down that point. But we do know for certain, that Labour are going to be using private healthcare to bring down the waiting list. The question that I've been asking, and I haven't got a straight answer from this yet. That's on my mind. Is that if the use of private healthcare helps bring down the NHS backlogs, are Labour going to push more state control for the NHS and push out more the use of private healthcare down the road? That is a question that is something that I haven't heard a straight answer from Labour on, and that is a worrying thought. Joldy, thank you so much for the £5 euros. Greatly appreciated, my friend. The UK is still the only OECD country that has a workforce smaller than it has at the end of 2019. Those other countries had the pandemic too. Absolutely. And that's where later on, obviously, Stephen Flynn will mention the word Brexit, because obviously that has had an effect on the workforce that we've had, not just within our NHS, but other sectors as well. So we've been harmed by the pandemic. Yes, absolutely. But what we haven't done is recovered from it because of Brexit, because of austerity, and the way that the government has handled when it comes to the whole immigration thing. But absolutely, yeah. Like it's been like what 3.5 years now since COVID. It's like we can't keep using that excuse anymore. I understand that there are still some backlogs to it. I accept there are still some backlogs to it, but we're not hearing these backlogs in other countries. So it really is on the Conservatives here.
out too. But, you know, we in Wales have had a double whammy. We've had the imp.
And we have record waiting lists in Wales.
And the NHS was in no way a part of that cooperation
expecting a
agreement
cut
because we do not agree with Labour's approach on the NHS in Wales. My job as an opposition member is to persuade them to make some bold decisions to take us on the right direction. But you know what? You need more than anything, Ashani, is assurance that sustainability will be built in for the workforce within the NHS. Workforce planning and giving you the support through your pay packet, one, but all those other means that show that you are valued as a health worker.
Okay.
Well, I don't know why there was a cut there. I don't know why. I didn't have time to watch this whole video feed there, so hopefully we didn't miss anything too important there. But I didn't really hear, like, I remember even from yesterday listening to it, I didn't hear a lot about what Plaid Cymru would do for the NHS in Wales. But obviously, I will say the good point there obviously is about making sure that they get a decent pay packet there. I think is the right thing, and I think everybody would agree with that.
Nigel Farage.
Whether it's Labour-run Wales or SNP-run Scotland or Conservative-run England, we all know that whilst you can get great care, the NHS model isn't working. You can't get GP appointments, things that we've all grown up taking for granted. And they can argue about, it's all money. I'm going to spend more money. You're going to spend more money. It doesn't work. Just a few years ago, we were spending 7.5% of the national cake on the NHS. We're now spending over 11% of the national cake on the NHS.
So the answer to Ashani's question, how would you ensure she graduates into a fully functioning NHS?
NHS, well, I'm going to answer it. Because the more money we spend, the less delivery we get, which means the model is wrong.
No. It's not the model that is wrong. Yeah, it is the fact that after 14 years, the National Healthcare Service and many parts of the National Healthcare Service have been privatised. We know that it's been privatised. That is the fundamental fact that it's been privatised by the Conservatives. They have allowed more privatisation within the infrastructure of the NHS in England. We know that that is the case. It is not the NHS in itself. It is the changing from within that they have privatised many parts of the NHS. And what he wants to go down is an insurance-based system. He won't say that there, but he wants people to be paying out of their pocket to pay for healthcare. Yeah, him saying there that throwing money at this does not work. And there is a need for changing within the NHS. You're right, there is a need for change in the NHS. I agree with you on that, Nigel. But not in the way that you want it. You want to rip people's hearts and souls out of the NHS. You want people who are dying of cancer to have their families and friends pay for them. You want us. You don't want it coming from taxpayers' coffers. You want individual people paying for their own healthcare. That's what you want, Nigel.
The model through which we fund health is wrong.
So this is Nigel telling us he doesn't believe in the NHS. This is what he's doing. He's telling the public he does not believe in the NHS.
No, I'm telling you,
you want to privatise it. That is what you want to do.
And you in Scotland, of all places, I mean, look, the NHS is very badly run. Let's change the funding model.
We'll not be taking any lectures from you.
You'd like more private healthcare?
No, let's change the model. Now, the NHS, it isn't funded through national insurance. That's a nonsense. It goes into the pot.
That's nonsense again. That is true. National insurance, the huge chunk of that, yes, whilst doesn't all go to the NHS, a huge contribution of it goes towards the NHS and also goes towards social care as well. So that's nonsense from him.
Countries right next door to us, there's one country, France, that has a very, very different way of funding the NHS. It's rather like those that can afford, through their taxes, pay into an insurance scheme. Those that can't afford it don't pay in, so it's for the mutual benefit of everybody, and it's managed as if it was a private company.
Right there. Private company. Now, unfortunately, I saw a tweet with a picture graph of showing, and I don't have the tweet with me. I don't think I'll have a quick look and see if I can find it for you guys. There was a tweet that someone showed a graph of the French healthcare service, and it was showing that we would end up paying more if we had the same healthcare system as the French. I'm just going to have a quick nose and have a look and see if I can find it for you guys. I don't think I will be able to. I'm going to give it a shot and see if I can find it for you guys. I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat, see what you guys are saying there. Good to hear such a strong reaction in support of our NHS. Yeah, well, fair play to Stephen Flynn for calling that BS out. I think that was really, really important. Mark Lee says, the pandemic was an issue for the NHS. It certainly was the case in 2022, but now in 2024, blaming the pandemic in 2024 won't wash with certain voters. No, it won't. It will not. It will not wash with certain voters. Let's see if I can still... I'm not sure if I liked the tweet or not. No, it looks like I did not like the tweet, so I've lost that tweet, unfortunately. Yeah, someone that I do apologise, guys. I did see a graph on it. I should have kept it. I do apologise. But yeah, basically, the graph basically had the status of saying that if we actually had the same model as the French healthcare system, which I'm not too much familiar on it. So if anyone has a better knowledge on it, please let me know down in the comments there. But as far as I'm aware, it's not like... we had, before the Conservatives took over, we had the best healthcare system on the planet. Like, waiting times were not an issue. So I don't like don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sure the French I don't know how the French feel about their healthcare system, and it probably works for them. But our system works fine. But they want to go down this privatization route. They want to go down the same route as America. This is what they want. Wolfpack, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. Ideal. Am I saying your word right? I hope so. If I do, I apologise. He's right about the last 10 years of NHS spending. All the money's been thrown, went into BS. It's IT systems and not training staff in salaries and the things, and keeping it sustainable. Yes, a lot of money, without a shadow. 100% agree with you. A lot of NHS money has been wasted. Without a shadow of a doubt, a lot of money has been wasted. And we do need to look at where the money is actually going. And I generally hope that Labour does look in deep about where that money is going. But his idea is not in the interest of the British public in any way, shape or form. Reform UK think of government and policy and politics as a business. Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do. Welcome, whoever you are. The UK today is once letters short of a functional budget. Says Jocic on the Twitch there as well. Yes. Best in the world, wrecked by greed. Yeah, indeed, guys. Thanks for your comments. Much appreciate it.
And their returns on stroke, heart and cancer are better than ours for exactly the same sum.
And good morning, International Language of Dance as well, sorry.
Of money.
The King's Foundation.
We get a fully functioning NHS.
The King's Foundation.
If we spend our money properly, and we're not spending our money properly, and that's the point.
Daisy, you'll have to make it very brief because I need to get to Carla
The Hill Foundation and the King's Fund have done an analysis of different funding models. They don't materially make a difference to people's health outcomes. What makes a big difference, most of all, is the amount of money you put into your health service.
And the Green Party
and independent experts say.
It works. Let's learn from it.
I'd like to hear from Carla Denyer on this.
And the Green Party, the party that's ready to be honest about the need for investment, because Ishani, you're quite right to ask the question, and thank you for stepping into this important vocation. The NHS has been chronically underfunded for decades.
Yes.
It's on its knees. This cannot be allowed to continue. Most of us agree about that. But the answer is not, as the Conservatives and, surprisingly, Labour think, to invite big multinational companies further into our National Health Service. The answer is investment and protecting our NHS.
And the money comes from?
Well, we announced our health and social care policy just yesterday, and that included a £30 billion increase in funding for our health services, 20 billion on social care, and it's really important that we understand how closely those are linked, because if we have better social care, it takes the pressure off the NHS, and a one-off £20 billion capital investment.
These are large sums.
They
come from where?
They come from reforming the tax system, because currently the UK tax system is unbelievably unfair. It puts more onus on...
So if what I'm going to do, just quickly, guys, I'm pretty sure I've still got the tweet from him from yesterday on this. I'm pretty sure I've got this. No, do I not have it here? Damn it, where did I put it? I had a tweet. I had the tweet from yesterday on when he was speaking to the co-Green Party candidate. Which folder did I put it in? Because he explains it better than Carla does there. God, where is that tweet? Oh God, I thought I had the tweet for you guys. So basically, it was a clip because the other co-leader was speaking to Sky News, and he was very clear about the policy. But again, I've not got it here. I thought I had it here ready. Clearly, I've not got it. I've not been as prepared for this one, obviously, than the other one. So I do apologise. But essentially, like well, I'll just let her finish speaking, and then I'll give my point.
Lower income working people to contribute to the Treasury than it does towards the super rich, the millionaires, the multimillionaires and the billionaires. And so the Greens would make some adjustments to that system so that those with the broadest shoulders who can most easily afford to pay quite a modest amount, and that will provide plenty of funding for decent investment in public services that benefit all of us.
Okay. Thank you, Carla Denyer, and thank you all. On to our next question.
And that you can tell there the very thought of someone saying blatantly they're taxing the rich or adjusting the tax system so that the rich pay more, that appeals to people. That really does appeal to people. Because one thing you don't hear enough about is from Labour is saying about how much they're going to tax more the rich and the wealthy in society. You don't hear that enough from Labour. I think if they said that a lot more, they would win a lot more votes from the likes of the Greens and from the left. I think. I generally think they would if they actually talked about that more. But it is I will say quite disappointing that you don't hear that. Enough about taxing the rich and the wealthy. But obviously their manifesto is not out yet, the Greens, so we'll still have to wait for that. But yeah, we do need some kind of wealth tax. But Phil from A Different Bias has said there are going to be other ways that they may tax the rich as well. But again, we'll have to wait and see what Labour's manifesto is going to be in terms of that. But it's very. Carla was quite clear about what the Greens would do in terms of healthcare there. So, and it was very appealing to the audience.
And this one comes from Lorenzo Barba.
Where I live in Essex, I'm struggling to find a house. I've noticed the roads are busier, and it's almost impossible to get a doctor's appointment. I think immigration is partly to blame. What are the parties going to do about immigration?
Thank you very much, Lorenzo, for that. And I'm going to turn first to Stephen Flynn.
So I accept the premise of what you're saying in respect of your area. I'm afraid I don't know it very well, but let me say a few home truths, particularly to some members of this panel. Migration is absolutely essential to our public services.
Yes.
It's absolutely essential to our businesses, and it's absolutely essential to our economic...
Are you listening, Nigel? Are you listening?
What we need to do is end the demonisation of migration. In Scotland, we have a declining working age population despite a net number of people moving from the rest of the UK to Scotland. We need migrants. And this race to the bottom on migration, driven by Nigel Farage,
yes,
followed by the Conservative Party and hotly chased by the Labour Party, does not serve Scotland's interests. And it does not serve your interests either. So rise up against it. Do as Keir Starmer did in 2020 and talk about the benefits of migration, its importance to our fundamental aspects of life.
To be clear, any voter in Scotland who wants lower immigration should vote for other parties.
I think any voter in Scotland who wants to impact our economy, impact our NHS, should vote for the parties who want to cut migration, which is the Labour Party, the Conservative Party and Nigel Farage. And this is a consequence of us being led down the garden path by the right wing in British politics for far too long. We need to stand against it. We need to promote our economy, promote our public services, and to do so by promoting migration.
Yes.
Promote our public services, and to do so by promoting migration.
I'm on a platform.
Yeah, well said by Stephen Flynn. 100% in agreement there. This is the thing. People think migration is bad. Yes, does it need to be controlled? Yes, of course migration needs to be controlled. This premise that Nigel Farage is going to be saying in his speech is obviously about open borders, everything's opened up, everything's all open sort of thing. It's just nonsense, guys. It's nonsense. Like, nobody is basically opening the floodgates and allowing migration in. The reason that there is global migration is because we have lots of conflicts taking place around the world that international countries and organizations are not doing enough to stop, and also the world is not doing enough when it comes to tackling climate change, because we're seeing that parts of the planet are becoming much warmer, and the climate is just not ideal yet for them to live in. So there's as well as lots of other factors that are playing in play. So you've got to deal with these issues on a global scale, on an international basis. And if you're not prepared to get at the table to help this, then don't complain about people knocking on your door wanting the space that you already have, because that is the consequences of these wars and the climate that we're situated in. We have to do more to resolve the issues within Gaza. We have to do more to resolve the issues with the Sudan conflict. We have to do more to resolve what's happening in Myanmar. We have to do more to resolve many of the conflicts and tensions that's taking place within many countries within Africa, even those within Central and South America where there are issues there. We have to be able to deal with them as well. This is on an international scale. We need to talk about these more, and we need to deal with these issues, and we need to come to conclusions about how we deal with them. No, you cannot stop migration altogether. We know we can't stop migration altogether, but if we work on an international community and international basis, we can reduce global migration. It is just a case of choice and the will to do it. Yes, of course, some of it requires money, of course, but also it just requires the political will to do so. And the problem is that people are taking advantage of that political will to use it to gain their own power and serve their own interests, and not the interests of the people that they serve.
Tonight, with 6 other people whose parties have been wholly unconcerned with the issue of immigration. They think that to even question it somehow makes you a bad person. Let's get back to Lorenzo's question. Let's deal with some logic, shall we? From the end of the 1940s
That'd be a novelty for you.
until Mr. Blair got to power, listen to the numbers. You probably don't know them.
Made up numbers.
For 50
probably.
years, net migration into Britain was 30 to 40,000 a year. Then Tony Blair gets in, decides to open the doors. We get net migration for the period of the Labour government of 2.7 million people come in that period. Then we get the Conservatives, elected in 2010, 2015, 2017, telling us they'll reduce net migration to tens of thousands a year. 4.3 million the Conservatives have led in. Most of those that come in are not directly productive members of the economy. Most of those that come in are actually dependents. And Lorenzo, the truth of it is, this ought to be the immigration election.
No.
Because whether we talk about housing, whether we talk about the fact that rents are up between 20 and 30% in most of the country in the last 4 years, whether we talk about the roads, whether we talk about infrastructure, we are living through a population crisis, an increase of 10 million people since Mr. Blair came to power, and frankly, it's making us poorer, it is diminishing our quality of life, and it's nothing to do with race or any of those issues. It's to do with actually putting the interests of our communities first. We need to get net migration, and that means, by the way, people come and people go. We need to get net migration down to an even figure for the next few years, and maybe then we can hope to catch up with housing, with health, and many of those things.
Most of those coming to the UK today are on work visas or are international students.
About 50% of those that come are dependents. We've even had, under the Conservatives, students coming and bringing their mum. The whole thing's been unbelievable.
So don't buy this.
The whole thing's been unbelievable.
So don't buy this.
Unbelievable.
Nigel
Flynn,
you've
had to say on this. Can I turn to Renat Bjorworth, please?
Nigel Farage wants to make this an immigration election for his own self-interest. Let's change the tone.
Yes.
Let's change.
Well, you can see, like, there was some applause, but obviously some people were just like, there are, like the host said, obviously there is a mixed audience here. So there are people who, whether we agree or not, are inclined to agree about this. But this is not an immigration election. And I've said this before, and I've said this again, guys. Nigel Farage and the right wing want to make it an immigration election. They want to put this all about migration. That is not what's on the minds of most majority of people. The cost of living crisis, the economy, our healthcare system, These are some of the major issues that are concerning people, and they need to be addressed more. These are fundamental issues that need to be addressed. Yes, of course, migration is an issue, but as many polls, MRP polls have been indicated, it is not the top issue that people have.
The tone of the debate on immigration. You know, too much of it is framed around, frankly, the bigotry of people like Nigel Farage.
Please. Is that the best you can do?
Penny Mordaunt can't stand up to Nigel Farage because she wants her party to be like Nigel Farage.
Yes.
Angela Rayner can't stand up to Nigel Farage because of the shift in her party to the right.
Yes.
Plaid Cymru will stand up to Nigel Farage.
Open doors,
on
everyone
immigration.
come.
Of course we need rules. Of course we need...
Well, it's an absolute nonsense from Nigel Farage here. Absolute nonsense. Nobody is saying open doors. This is Nigel parading to people saying, look, they're going to open up all the doors, for migration. That is not what any of the political parties are saying. No one is saying this. They are just parorating this to put this in the minds of people, saying they're going to let all these migrants come in. This is absolute nonsense. Didn't you say when we were going to leave the EU that we would stop getting influx of migrants, Nigel? I really wish someone had highlighted this as well to emphasize how much of a liar he is. I wish someone had done that in this debate.
Benefits for everybody. Lovely.
Of course we need rules on borders. Wales controlled its own borders during COVID. That's what countries do. But we need those around proper processing of asylum applications. We need to stop the vile and expensive Rwanda flights. We need safe passage into this country, and we need to realise that we need immigration for the interests of our health system, our care system, and our economy.
Penny Mordaunt, do you respond to Nigel?
I will just say, you need a workforce in order to have a good economy. Without a workforce, you can't have a good economy. Now, of course, that does tie into the healthcare system as well, because we know the healthcare system is broken, which is one of the fundamental things of why our economy is also in a bad shape. Yes, of course, Brexit and the trade agreements and businesses are struggling as well. We know that's a crisis issue that needs to be dealt with as well. But more workforce, we have more people contributing to the economy makes better economy. It's logic here. More workers, more economy, that kind of thing. And no one is talking about uncontrolled immigration here. Nigel Farage is just perorating this. Yeah, he is perorating this. We are not even one of the highest intakes of migration in Europe. It is other countries are taking in a lot more than us. Has our numbers increased over the last few years? Yes, it has increased over the last few years. But we're not the highest. We are certainly not the highest when it comes to other European nations. Let's be very clear about that as well. Ted Boy 1, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. Foreign immigrants are bad words in England. I've lived in Norway for 33 years and not once have I been told to F off home, something that's happened almost every day in my 9 years in England. Yeah, I just, why treat, this is my premise I've always said. I don't look at people by their nationality or their skin colour or whatever your religious or sex belief. If you're a good person to me, I'll be a good person to you. If you're going to be a jerk to me, I'm going to be a jerk to you, sort of thing. That's how it should be. Treat everyone as equals. But they want to change that. But that's not the narrative that Reform wants to paint, and that's the so-called far right, which is what Stephen Flynn has said. That's the kind of thing they want to play on people.
Farage's charge of broken promises from your party on immigration.
Well, look, this might be an immigration election, but it is definitely going to be a cost of living election. And one thing that we can do to help the gentleman who asked the question is about ensuring that you keep more of your money. We will cut your taxes. Labour will put your...
The nodding of the head says it all. Nodding of the head says it all from that audience member. That's really bad. That's really bad for those sitting at home who still have some faith or belief in the Conservatives. Shows the disconnect there. That really hurt. That really is a bad image for Penny Mordaunt and the Conservative government. That really is.
Your taxes up.
Was that the question?
If you having more agency, being able to get onto the property ladder, that is
Penny Morton, I am going to remind you of the question. Lorenzo's question,
just with regard
the problems that he set out. He said, I think immigration is partly to blame. What are the parties going to do about immigration?
So immigration is too high. And what we need to do is have a balance between some of the issues that have been raised already.
I just want to respond to this question from Ideologue saying that the polling of people who voted for Brexit revealed that migration is indeed to an issue. Over 53% voted for Brexit in Aero, 53% see it as a top issue. I didn't say it wasn't an issue. What I said was it is not the priority of the overall British public. The priority is the economy. The priority is the cost of living crisis. I didn't say it wasn't an issue. I never said that. What I said is that the main issue, the overall majority of people issue, is the cost of living crisis and the economy. That is the main crux of the issue. I didn't say that it wasn't an issue. Whether I can't speak for people's opinions and change over time. Obviously, when it comes to when it comes to Brexit, a lot of people who voted for Brexit obviously have changed their position since then. But I know you're not saying that. But obviously, I know you're not specifically saying that, but migration is an issue. It is an issue. No one's disputing that it's not an issue, but it is not the top issue. But there are certain politicians and media outlets who are trying to make it a top issue, which is not true in the eyes of the British public.
The best way to do this is to get Parliament,
Good to see you,
your
Simon.
Parliament, elected by you to have an annual cap. What that will do is take into account the economic needs, the needs of the workforce, but also the pressures that immigration puts on communities, as the question made very clear. That will be informed by experts, but it will be Parliament that decides. And because the numbers are too high, over the next few years, you can see it will come down. That is a clear plan, a clear guarantee. We've already ended free movement. We've done many things. That is the logical next step. That's what you get with us.
How's free movement? How's the removal of free movement done for us? How's our trade and businesses done since we've taken away the freedom of movement? How's that done for us, Penny? Do you want to tell us how that's been doing for us since we've lost that?
They haven't done any of the work on the workforce. They've had 14 years to work this out. They have nothing to offer you. Controlled numbers and a cap under us, or uncontrolled immigration under the Labour Party.
How have you got the front to say that?
Let's let Angela Rayner respond to that charge of having no plan. Your party's only said that there'll be a significant cut, but there are no numbers, no time frame attached to that.
I mean, I love the spin on that. 14 years and you failed, trebled net migration figures. But what I would say to Lorenzo is the problems with housing, roads and GPs and non-public services is decimation that the Tories have done to our public services.
Your leader campaigned for free movement. Keir Starmer has spent most of his life campaigning for free movement. These guys are not going to control immigration.
Excuse me, how's immigration been doing under your watch? Okay, it's not very well done under your watch. And yeah, you know what? Freedom of movement is actually a good thing. It's good especially for our younger generation, as well.
And we've said that the Rwanda scheme. Look, yesterday, 300 people arrived on a boat. One was a 6-month-old baby. They could have died going over the crossing. Said we need a new border command. We would scrap the Rwanda scheme, which would have been.
This whole border command thing is not really. It's just a kind of a gimmick thing. It's not really something that's going to be that's really going to get eyes opening. It sounds good on paper, but is it really something that's going to make a difference?
300 for the whole year, by the way.
There's no such thing as illegal migration. This is a made-up thing. There is no such thing. No such thing as illegal migration. This is a rhetoric that they're using to disdain people.
Small compared to legal migration.
We would scrap the Rwanda scheme. We would put that money into a border force command, which will be able to smash the gangs, because we need to do that. And 14 years of the Conservatives, they're relying on overseas to fill our skill shortages because we haven't got an industrial and skills strategy. Labour will put one in place so that we can fill the gaps and make sure that we have people in those jobs. People come to this country and they're propping up many of our services because we haven't trained the people to do that. But This is how Liberal have planned.
The tragedy of this is that Labour wants more and more to talk the language of the Conservatives and, dare I say, Nigel Farage. Keir Starmer said the other day that, Rishi Sunak was the most liberal Prime Minister when it comes to immigration.
He did say that. Rishi Sunak, the most liberal Prime Minister. That's just, oh, sorry, I just had to laugh at the Sorry, guys, I had to laugh at that, really. Yeah.
Any more clean up your words? I'd like to hear now from...
Oh, don't even start with action, Penny. You've got no legs or even a sword to stand on when it comes to action from your party.
Carla Denyer and from Daisy Cooper.
So, Lorenzo, your question started by talking about houses, roads and GPs. We need to build 150,000 social homes a year to tackle the crisis in our housing. The roads are in a mess because the Conservatives have cut local authority budgets between 25 and 40%. That's why public services are on their knees.
This is needed to be highlighted. Public services are in the situation they are in because of the Conservatives. The Conservatives have cut the public funding. This is a very good attack line to remind people, hey, your public services are crap, not because of local councils, it is because of the Westminster government and taking the funding away from them. This is a very good point here highlighted.
And the Conservatives promised at the last general election to recruit 6,000 GPs. We now have fewer GPs per head right across our country. That's why our public services are on their knees.
Very good here from Daisy Cooper. This is great attack lines.
Are you wrong to say that he thinks immigration is partly to blame?
But I would say that actually it's to do with the Conservative choices, because at the same time as eroding all of that investment, they've made choices to give a tax cut to the big banks. But on the issue of immigration...
Nice shot with the big banks. Very good.
I would say the Conservatives have made a complete mess, both of migration system, but also of the asylum system. And we have the worst of both worlds. We have people who are desperate, who are fleeing war and persecution, arriving on small boats. And at the same time, we have our NHS, our social care, we have hospitality and engineering. None of them can recruit the staff that they need with the skills to boost our economy. So Liberal Democrats have said on care in particular, we should give care workers a higher minimum wage, £2 higher, invest in our care workers, give them status, give them progression in the workforce. And then when we still have skills gaps, invite people in from other countries and welcome them when they come.
Okay. Carla Denyer.
Well said. Very good from Daisy Cooper there. I thought that was very, very impressive there.
What would the Green Party do about immigration?
First of all, reflecting back to what Nigel Farage said, how cold-hearted do you have to be to not want people who are coming here on work visas to be able to bring their husbands or wives or infant children with them? Mm-hmm. The Green Party would not want to cut immigration? The Green Party takes a totally different approach to immigration. When it's hard to get an affordable home, when it's hard to access public services like a GP, when the roads are poorly maintained, I can absolutely understand, Lorenzo, why you're angry about these things. I am too. But I am clear that the reason for these services being run into the ground is not people coming here, whether they're coming here fleeing violence and persecution as asylum seekers, or whether they're coming here to work in many of our understaffed sectors like health and social care. If you meet a migrant in the NHS, they're more likely to be treating you, as I was the last time I saw a GP, than being ahead of you.
Yes, well said.
Migration's been a good thing for this country. And so in the Green Party, our immigration policy is not about arbitrary numbers. That's why we're not talking about caps. Instead, it's about making our immigration system fairer and more humane.
Carla Denyer, thank you very much. So we still have quite a few more questions to come. Meanwhile, I want to mention that online on the BBC Live page, our colleagues at BBC Verify are fact-checking the claims that are made here on stage.
Change is a key word. It's a change election.
Hold on, let me just...
isn't it? The sadness is...
This isn't sustainable. Who will change things for working people?
Thank you.
Right, so just before I go to the next question there, guys, just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming along, because I've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. We are going to keep going. Don't worry, we are going to keep going. But I just want to take a little break, just break things up a little bit, for you guys. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. It'd be great. Appreciate shares across social media, because that really does help. And subscribe if you haven't already, because all those things, guys, really do support the channel. If you could do any of those things, please do so. It really does help support the channel. I'm just going to play, I'm just going to take things all away. We need a funny video to kind of break the ice sort of thing, because obviously there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of frustration about the state of that our country is in. So what better way to kind of break the ice a little bit than a bit of comedy, guys, because we need a bit of comedy to break things up here. And who better to do it than Mr. One Jonathan Pye here.
The first of our series of special election reports, where we take a look at the issues that are going to decide this coming election. Now, when nearly 2 weeks ago Rishi Sunak fired the starting gun, he told us that when the Tories came into office 14 years ago, Labour had crashed the economy. They left a note, he said, saying that there was no money left. So that seems as good a place as any to start. So today we're looking at the economy. They've been banging on about that fucking note for 14 years. 14 years ago, outgoing Labour Chief Secretary to the Treasury left a note to incoming Tory Chief Secretary of the Treasury saying, "Dear Chief Secretary to the Treasury, all the money's gone." Which wasn't exactly a lie, but it was also clearly a fucking joke. You'll notice Labour aren't still talking about when in 1964 the outgoing Tory Chancellor left his successor James Callaghan a note saying, "Good luck, old cock, sorry to leave it in such a mess," which again wasn't exactly a lie, but again was also a fucking joke. When any Tory says that the last time Labour were in government they crashed the economy, they are lying to you. Labour did not crash the economy in 2008. In 2008, there was a thing called the global financial crash. Global financial crash. And that was caused by greedy bankers, disaster capitalists, and hedge fund managers. Hedge fund managers like, Rishi Sunak, Kwasi Kwarteng, and Sajid Javid. Interesting. One of the major factors of the 2008 crash in the UK was when hedge fund company TCI forced ABN to be sold to the Royal Bank of Scotland, which meant the Royal Bank of Scotland went tits up and the taxpayer had to bail it out whilst enduring years of brutal and sustained austerity, supposedly to help clear up the mess that the dodgy bankers had made, because apparently we were all in it together. Remember that? Well, guess who was a partner at hedge fund TCI at the time? Guess who made millions of pounds out of that very banking crash? Guess who made millions of pounds at the country's expense, at your expense, whilst everybody else suffered? Rishi Sunak. He made millions of pounds out of the very chaos he helped create. Rishi Sunak is personally more culpable for that banking crash than anyone who was in government at the time. And yes, Labour overspent, just a teeny bit, but they overspent on things like hospitals and schools and social care and bombing Iraq. They didn't overspend 37 billion on useless test and trace, 26 billion in uncollected fraud that Rishi Sunak personally let slip through his fingers, or 1.6 billion on a barge full of listeria. And now, just like 2008, there's no money left. Again, only this time it all went to Michelle Mone. When the Tories crashed the economy, it wasn't because of global financial events. It was because Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng had a couple too many lines of gack and thought, fuck it, £45 billion of unfunded tax cuts for the most wealthy. That'll help the country to level up. The next time the Tories lecture anyone about Labour bankrupting the country, 2 words, Liz Truss. If right now you're facing a massive hike in your mortgage repayments, that's Liz Truss. She did that. Next time you hear them talk about fiscal responsibility, 2 words, Nadeem Zahawi, the tax-dodging Chancellor of the Exchequer, a man worth over £100 million who dodged millions of pounds of tax whilst making you poorer. He did that. Next time they mention getting inflation under control, 2 words, fuck you, we're not that stupid. Inflation might be slowing, but prices are still 20% higher than in 2021. And whilst they've all been profiteering and handing out billions of pounds in contracts to their rich mates, whilst claiming vast amounts on expenses with their fingers literally in the nation's till, they are making sure it's Angela Rayner's second home fraud that didn't actually happen that makes the front pages of the Telegraph. Whatever you think of Labour, I can't see them suddenly implementing £45 billion of tax cuts for the most wealthy on a whim. In fact, they're not going to do anything radical whatsoever. They are going to actually achieve absolutely fuck all if they win this election. You know why? There's no fucking money left. Well, tomorrow we're looking at the second most important topic for most British voters, and that's immigration. But for now, back to you, Carol.
Thank you, Jonathan Pye, for that nice one there on the economy. I hope you guys enjoyed that one there. I don't agree, I'm not 100% on board, obviously, with what you said about Labour, but let's crack on, guys. Thank you guys for all your comments. I am just have a quick look in the chat because I do want to crack on. This is the second time I've watched the BBC debate. More and more like Carlo and Stephen. They are good, said Satu Hoshi. Good to see you there. I hope you're doing well. Pye is funny, but he's no friend of Scotland. No, considering what he said before, I totally get that. Smartest man in any park, said Ideology. Mexican Bandit Party. We don't need those stinking badgers, says Billy Kershaw. Pye would make a great speaker in the House. Oh my God, he would be an interesting speaker in the House, that is for sure. All right, let's carry on, guys.
Suzanne.
Oh, wait a second. I'm using the wrong... There we go. Got to have me in the picture.
For your question. Rena Pureworth.
Change is a key word. It's a change election, isn't it? The sadness is there'll be a change in Downing Street. I'm quite sure that Keir Starmer will become the Prime Minister in 4 weeks' time. But what change does that represent? I will always argue that you need a plurality of voices making the case for exactly what you're looking for. What are the answers when you have 2 parties converging on public spending, converging on taxation? Who's going to make sure that you're able to see the investment in housing for your children, to see the investment in getting rid of the 2 child benefit cap in order for parents to be able to look after their children and take children out of poverty?
Now, I want to address this 2-child benefit cap because I really think this is more, because I've had this discussion on Discord as well. So, why isn't Labour scrapping the 2-child benefit cap? So the reason, my understanding, the reason of this, and I can only take this from different Pius, and I know how some people feel about him, but what the reason is because it is popular, apparently, the 2-child benefit cap. Now, I did a little bit of research to look into it, and the only poll, and there was a poll on it where from YouGov from last year that stated that the majority of people wanted to keep the 2-child benefit cap. But YouGov polling was actually the YouGov polling indicated that the majority of people wanted to keep the 2-child benefit cap, even though it makes people poorer, which raised a lot of eyebrows there. And the other reason is the argument that was also made that this for those people who think that there is this mindset of people thinking that people on benefits are bad, that people don't work enough. There is that mindset in the minds of people as well. But I don't agree that keeping the 2-child benefit cap, and I do believe that getting rid of it will bring a lot more people, will uplift a lot of people, and we do need more. We do need to get rid of it, me personally. But I don't understand. But I'm still not fully clear on why people think that. I have not seen a poll this year on the 2-child benefit cap. If anyone sees our latest poll this year, please send it to me on Discord so I can have a look.
I believe that the real frustration in this election is the lack of change on offer from the Labour Party. Whether you liked him or not, there was a feeling. I was still working as a journalist back in the 90s when Tony Blair came in. At least there was a feeling of something different happening. I'm just not sensing that, which is why we in Plaid Cymru say the Tories are gone. Labour are going to come into power. But let's, for goodness sake, make sure that people who feel ignored, as you do, are heard by that Labour Party when they came in, because change has to mean something. And that's what's important.
Angela.
Yes, it should do as well. Dave McGuinness, good to see you there. I hope you're doing well. No two-child benefit cap in Scotland. SNP government mitigates against it.
Rayner, Green-Up-Your-Worth charges that change is not really going to come with any Labour government.
Well, look, there's been no vote cast at this general election, and Susanna, I absolutely understand what you're saying. The cost of living, you can't escape what's happened, and Liz Truss crashed the economy, which sent mortgages going sky high. We've been at the mercy of the global energy prices, and therefore energy prices have gone significantly high for people, and also food prices. So Labour's first plan and priority is to...
Let's be clear, yeah, Angela, the food prices, yes, have been affected by the war in Ukraine with regards to Ukrainian grain. Yes, but let's not dodge around that. But we also know Brexit has hampered food prices as well. But that's something that should be addressed as a part of the rise in food prices as well. Let's be very clear on that.
Secure the economy. We will never go fast and loose with public finances, because it's working people who are paying the price for that. And Great British Energy, which is putting a windfall tax on the big oil and gas companies, which will allow us to set up the publicly owned energy company, which will give taxpayers money back, bring down bills and make us secure for our energy needs for the future, and create thousands of jobs here in the UK. That is real change. That's how we'll deliver an economy that...
It's a start, but is it enough is the question, I suppose. ...works
for working people. And the Tories should never be allowed to forget that the reason they're in the cost of living crisis now is because they crashed the economy and went fast and loose with the public finances.
Penny Mordaunt.
So this is what I mean. This is what I mean when I say this election is about the cost of living. And what...
Who caused the cost of living again? Sorry, could you remind me, Penny? Who's caused this cost of living crisis?
You have been going through, and many other people have been going through. It's exhausting, and we need to...
Yeah, we are exhausted of you too, Penny. We're exhausted of you too.
Bring it to an end. We have supported people through some very difficult times. That has been expensive. But we are now in the recovery. The economy is doing much better. We're outperforming America on growth. We're outperforming Europe on inflation. Those are your achievements.
But inequality continues to get worse.
Yes, equality continues to get worse. Like, you're saying these things, but there's a difference between saying what statistics and numbers are doing, and then there is the feeling of how people feel on the streets. And people are not feeling what you're saying, Penny. You can say these things, and there may be some statistics and numbers to back up, yeah, that they're the fastest growing or inflation is down and whatnot. But if people are not feeling it, they're not going to buy into it. And that's one of the biggest difference between you right now and the rest of the parties.
The recovery going is to give you more money in your pockets. That is
UBI.
That's why this election must be about us cutting your taxes. We have already started doing that, and you have already heard some announcements. You'll see more in our manifesto.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mad Monk, but I was aware. So Mad Monk 33 says it's not a publicly owned company. It will be a privately funded fund management company that doesn't produce any energy at GB. That's GB Energy. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but was there not supposed to be, I believe it was going to be partly state funded. At least partly state funded by the taxpayer. Is that not what? So are you saying that that's not the case at all? That is going to be completely privately owned, even though, is that what you're stating? Because that's not what I've heard from the Labour government. I just wanted to clarify that with you.
Next week, we have got to cut people's taxes, and we have got to alleviate burdens on business. Angela Rayner and the Labour Party,
here we go.
Keir Starmer confirmed this earlier this week, they are going to put up your taxes by £2,000.
That's a lie.
Not true.
£1,000
That's a lie.
That is a lie.
household.
Penny, your government...
What is it
Have
then,
raised
Angela?
taxes to the
What is
record
it?
level in 70
What
years.
is, yeah,
That's
we have,
Parliament,
and we've hated
26
putting
different
taxes up. We have now been cutting taxes. We will continue
Sorry you're hearing that
to
bickering
cut
at
taxes.
10 o'clock in the
country
morning.
Can afford it.
You're using
£2,000.
You're using a figure that's been criticised by this.
Why don't you stand by your record? Record levels of taxes on working people. 26 separate tax hikes in the last Parliament.
About 12 new taxes that Labour are going to...
It's not like, the thing is that you can keep pulling this you can keep throwing this number out, all right? And in the first debate, it worked. Yeah, it worked. But it's not going to work in the second debate when it not only is it being called out, the host is saying it's not true as well. Now, those people who may have watched the first debate, well, may watch this debate. Now you're completely shot. Yeah, because you've already put out a lie, the lie, and now people know it's a lie. Now you're trying to push this same lie, which people know is not true, in people's faces. And it's just like, why are you lying to me? Do you not care about my vote? Do you not want my vote at this general election? Why are you blatantly lying to me about what Labour are going to do when it is being debunked already? Why do you not want my vote? That's the mindset of some Conservative voters watching this, when they know that what's been said is a lie, and it's been proven to be a lie.
Absolute rubbish. We've absolutely guaranteed we will not raise taxes for working people in this country.
How are you going to close that gap? £2,000 per working household. Which policies are you going to take out of your manifesto?
We've been clear how we would pay for our manifesto.
Okay, it's time. It's time to hear from the others. Angela Rayner, it's time to hear from the others. Angela Rayner, it's time to hear from the others. Carla Denia.
Well, that was terribly dignified, wasn't it?
Well done, Carla. Brilliant.
Returning to the question, you don't have to be an economist to see that our economy is not working for the majority of people. Penny is talking about a cost of living crisis, and yes, of course, that's what it is, but you might more accurately describe it as an inequality crisis.
Yes.
Because actually, some people in this country have been doing very, very well. Some people got substantially wealthier during the pandemic, while many of the rest of us struggled. It doesn't have to be like this. We could have well-paid jobs, secure jobs, and a welfare system that really acts as the safety net we need to catch people when they fall. A green economy would create jobs, well-paid jobs distributed all over the country, for example, on a nationwide home insulation programme, which would bring down everyone's bills, help with the cost of living in the here and now, give us warmer, more comfortable homes, create hundreds of thousands of green jobs. And
yes, I've said this before. Insulation of homes really would make a massive difference to people's, not just their bills, but also the heat as well. It would make such a massive difference. I know that I'm sure that Labour have their own plans when it comes to insulation, but more, and I know the Conservatives have been slow on it. We know they've been terrible on it. More needs to be done to insulate homes. If you want to bring down bills on energy, yes, just insulate more homes. Give incentives, and incentivize people to do so. Grants and whatnot, from the state, to incentivize more homes to be insulated. And any new homes that are built must have insulation as well. Should have that insulation already, if it's not already in law as well. It really is not that hard to do that for the new homes. But for me, it's about some of the homes that we already have, and a lot of the rundown homes that we have, that any kind of refurbishment or whatever, we should be pushing and emphasizing more the need to insulate these homes, so that we don't have situations where people who cannot afford to turn on the heating, who aren't dying from the coldness of the winter, which is absolutely, when I hear those stories, it's absolutely horrifying.
support local businesses. And the Greens would provide a real safety net, starting with a £15 minimum wage for all ages, removing the ageist cap on young working adults.
This is a very great incentive, especially, this is a great incentive. Obviously, the £15 minimum wage, obviously, how would businesses be able to take that is obviously another question, and there would be an uncomfortable reaction from businesses and whatnot, because obviously that's a lot of money taken out of businesses. But taking away that age restriction, what that does is obviously young kids at a young age know that if they start working harder at 16 and earning £15 an hour, that can really make a difference for them to be able to effectively help them, give them the better chance of being able to afford to be able to buy a home for themselves as well. That's a really good thing there. I do like that, you know, especially at the much younger ages there, I think so. Stu Viking President, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well.
An immediate uplift to universal credit, and my final point, removing the cruel two-child benefit cap that both the Conservatives and Labour's party support, even though it holds 250,000 children down in poverty.
Thank you, Carla Denyer. Nigel Farage.
Well said by Carla at the end
I
there.
think a lot of working people like you feel quite resentful. The harder you work, the more taxes you pay, the less disposable income you have, and yet there are increasingly people opting just not to work, and that number has rocketed over the course of the last few years.
Let's be very clear. The reason why that has rocketed over the years, guys, let's be very, very clear about this. And I said this earlier. It is one of the biggest fundamentals of any kind of economy, to be successful, requires a healthy workforce. And that ties into our national healthcare service, which is broken right now, of how long it takes for people to get appointments. Yeah, that unless you tackle the healthcare service, yeah, you are never going to fix that. It is not a choice for people to be disabled. It is not a choice for someone to be sick. It is not a choice that somebody wants to be. There is some people who obviously, there are some people who choose not to work. There is that proportion, but the vast majority of people who are stuck at home are there because of circumstances out of their control. Let's be very clear about that. But Nigel Farage and the right want to paint it as anyone who's claiming benefits of any sorts, yeah, they are just scrounging off the tax system, which is not true.
So I understand how you feel. Your energy bills are too expensive. They have been for the last 20 years. Why? Because we load money, we load tax onto your energy bill to give to wind farm companies. It's kind of the poorer in society giving to the richer in society. Rents, cost of housing, too high. That links back to the previous question. The population explosion has made housing, whether you buy them or rents, too expensive.
Let me be clear, yeah, the Conservatives have not built enough homes. The Labour are planning to build 1.5 million homes, is it? Correct me if I'm wrong, one angry pagan, over the next 5 years in the first term of Parliament, something like that. It's still not going to be enough, but it is, I would say, a step in the right direction. It's a start. It's not enough, but that's the best way I can describe it in terms of what Labour's plans are when it comes to housing on that.
Reducing net migration to zero would ease that. Getting rid of those subsidies on your energy bills would ease that. But the big one's taxes. You know, even during Tony Blair's time, the top rate of tax was...
Billy Kershaw with a great comment there. Green energy got taxed, oil didn't. Yeah, we're taxing green energy. We're taxing green energy, which is insane. It's such a stupid tax.
40p in this country, and it was paid by 1.5 million people. By the end of 2027, 8 million people will be paying 40p tax. So we're dragging more and more people doing middle-income jobs into higher and higher taxation. And that's why life is so tough. And to hear Penny Mordaunt, whose government have put the tax burden up to the highest in this country since 1948, pretending they're a tax-cutting party, frankly, it is dishonesty on a breathtaking scale.
Stephen Flynn.
Look, I'm incredibly sorry to hear about the challenges that you faced, and it's the same for millions of people right across these aisles, and it's simply not good enough. We know the damage that the Tories have caused to the economy as a result of Liz Truss's mini-budget, but I'm afraid the challenges facing the economy are much deeper than that. Firstly, there's austerity. 14 years of austerity, and I must re-emphasise the fact that there's £18 billion worth of cuts baked in, which neither the Labour Party nor the Conservative Party are being honest about. Instead, they're having the worst of Westminster argument between them tonight, instead of being honest with you about the fiscal outlook going forward. But there's also a conspiracy of silence on one other issue, and that's Brexit.
Yes.
Because Brexit has impacted the economy more than the COVID pandemic. It has put your food bills up completely unnecessarily. It has been an unmitigated disaster for the economy. And
Yeah, see the applause there. People feel it.
that is why at this election you need to ignore the snake oil salesmen who delivered Brexit.
Yes.
And you need to challenge the Labour Party and the Conservative Party about why they aren't seeking to rejoin the single market, why they aren't seeking to double down on making sure that we return to freedom of movement, and why we aren't investing in our renewables future.
And our exports are at a record high.
Penny, you know for a fact that Brexit has wiped £40 billion worth of tax receipts out of the UK economy.
Yes.
You did that because you were terrified of Nigel Farage. The worrying
Yes.
thing for me, though, is it's not Nigel. It's the silence of the Labour Party when it comes to the damage of Brexit. Silence on £18 billion of cuts, silence on Brexit. The public deserve better and the SNP will provide it.
Daisy Cooper earlier, Steve.
I will just say that I think it was wrong for Angela Rayner to stand there and take that. If she should have responded to say that what she should have done is responded right there and then and said, yeah, that we will look to negotiate a better deal with the European Union to bring closer ties to them. That is their policy with regards to Brexit. She should have addressed that instead of letting Stephen Flynn knock her down and on honesty there.
Stephen Flynn mentioned the austerity years. Your party was alongside the Conservatives in the first part of that.
Well, Liberal Democrats fought the Conservatives every...
Well, let me just say this about that, yeah. The Liberal Democrats, yes, of course, yeah, obviously getting into bed with the Tories was, in hindsight, obviously everyone knows it was a mistake. But being in government gives you an opportunity to do things. So they had an opportunity to do things, and they took that gamble. And yes, they paid the price for that. But they had an opportunity to do things in power. Not as much as obviously the Conservatives, but they still had an opportunity to do things in power. And if you have that opportunity, wouldn't you want to take that opportunity? Just saying.
Every single day in coalition, and we just have to look at the damage that the Conservatives have done on their own since 2015. Not only has there been Brexit, but there has been, this awful mini budget.
Dave McGinnis says, to be fair, Angela agrees with Stephen, but it's towing the party line. Well, as far as I'm aware, that's where Labour's position is with regards to it. But they have been. There's no question that what Stephen said is true. Both parties have been quiet on Brexit. There's absolutely no question about that. My business was murdered by both Brexit and COVID. Brexit more so, says Ideology. I'm so sorry to hear that about your business. I really am. So many people up and down. I really I do feel for anyone who've lost their business and are suffering as a result of this. It's not right, and I do hope. Not just yours, but anyone else's business does better under a Labour government, because they need some kind of optimism out there. Reg, good morning. Good to see you there as well.
Budget. And to go back to Suzanne's question, I speak to hundreds of people in your situation, people who play by the rules, people who work hard, people who pay their taxes, and they've almost got nothing to show for it. And on top of that, when they go to use their public services, everything feels broken.
Yeah.
Nothing works.
Well said, Daisy.
So, there's a reason why the Liberal Democrats were the first party to call for a windfall tax on the big oil and gas companies, because we saw the raw injustice of these big companies raking in billions of pounds of profits when ordinary folk couldn't afford to pay their energy bills. Okay, that is one example of how we will tax fairly in this country.
We will need to move on now to...
That's very good. Like pointing out, hey, the oil and gas companies are making billions of pounds in profit. How's your wallet and purses are doing out there? Very good again, Daisy Cooper. At times here, there's been some really good moments here from Daisy Cooper. I think she's handled herself very well in this debate.
Our next question. Thank you all for your responses to that one. And our next question comes from Linda Myers.
Good evening. Why is it when parties want your vote, they promise things, but when they're elected, nothing gets done?
Very good question. Oh, it's the video, guys. It's not me.
Penny Mordaunt.
I'm sorry. I love that the host turned to Penny Mordaunt first on that question. It's just a brilliant. I just thought that was brilliant. Just a great moment right there. You know, asking a question, why do they promise and then they just don't fulfill them? And the first person you ask is Penny Mordaunt of the Conservatives. I thought that was brilliant. Brilliant.
This is why the Prime Minister made the very clear pledges that he did, and you can measure the progress being made against them. We are making progress in this country. We have been through some very hard times, but the recovery is there. What we must ensure is that that is not choked off. And we must ensure that your taxes, with national insurance cuts that we have seen this year.
Guys, I do apologise. I don't know why it's cutting. I don't know why it's cutting like that, but it's very frustrating. I do apologise. Obviously, I haven't had time to watch this full video from this YouTuber that's got it, but I don't know why it cut out like it did. So I do apologise. I really I really wish it would stop doing that.
Yeah, that is what you need. It's not just your taxes that I'm worried about. I'm worried about my constituents being able to afford a Labour.
I'm worried about my constituents trying to vote me out, so I'm very concerned about them. I'm very concerned about my constituents because I really don't want them to vote me out because I've done nothing for them since my time in their constituency. I really don't want them to vote me out. That's why I'm very concerned about my constituency, says Penny Mordaunt.
Labour government. Angela mentioned GB energy. Do you know what the GB stands for? It stands for giant bills. And more bills are coming with the net zero plans that Labour have. That is the most important thing because everything depends on you having that disposable income. And that is why tax is at the heart of this. The pledges that we are making to you on cutting your taxes and what Labour will not tell you about the taxes they are going to be putting up.
But personal taxes, Penny Mordaunt, are still rising. Overall, they are still rising due to the freezing of income tax thresholds that you've brought in.
Look, we have had some very difficult times.
Stop blaming COVID and the war in Ukraine for your wrongdoings. Just own up to your mistakes. Why is it so hard for your party to accept ownership and responsibility for mistakes that you have made? It's so hard for you guys to do that. Like, yes, there have been challenges. So has every other country across the world that have had their own challenges too. That does not give you a right to excuse your mistakes.
We have had to spend a lot of money on things like furlough. That was the right thing to do, to keep jobs and livelihoods going, not just hand out welfare payments.
Yes, and don't get me wrong, everyone appreciates the furlough scheme and what a difference it made, but that was during the pandemic in a very difficult situation, and the government had to scramble in that situation. And believe me when I say, as someone who who needed that and made a massive difference to me and to my partner and many others around there, we greatly appreciate the Chancellor Rishi Sunak at the time for the furlough scheme. But we've moved on from that, Penny. We've moved on from that.
Pandemic has been expensive, and we've also had terrible global shocks. We've had to step in and pay people's energy bills. But we are coming through that thanks to your efforts. What you need now is disposable income in your pockets. You need taxes to be cut. We have announced already we're making cuts on your taxes regarding your home, your pension, work. We need to continue to do that. If you get us, we will reduce your taxes. That's in our DNA as Conservatives. That's not what is in Labour's DNA. They always put up taxes. They're going to put yours up by £2,000. They're going to increase your energy bills, and you're going to get a whole lot of costs with their net zero plans. My constituents cannot afford that. Okay. You cannot afford that.
Yep, my constituents cannot afford that, which is why I've done nothing for my constituents. So you need to vote for me, my constituents, because you need me.
I'm going to stop you there, and I'm also going to point out that the top civil servant in the Treasury said that the Conservative document that included the costs that you're referring to went beyond those provided by the civil service. Nigel Farage.
Well, Linda, I have to say, I think this has been one of the worst general election campaigns so far between the two main parties I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Which is why it would be even better, Nigel Farage, if you weren't part of the debate.
It isn't just that their leaders are dull don't clearly, well, very dull in the case of Labour. I mean, sort of Blair without the flair. I mean, the real leader of the...
This is what he's turning to, pot shots here without any. This is what he's turning to, Nigel Farage, just throwing pot shots out there. That's all he's doing here.
Labour Party's here tonight on the stage. At least she's got some personality. We've got Rishi Slippery Sunak. You know, he's fed all the lines to Penny Mordaunt. Don't believe any of it. I think it isn't just our public services that are broken. I think our political model is broken. The arguments that are going on the other side of the room here, when the truth is, they don't really disagree on anything. Fictitious numbers like £2,000, £3,000. And that's why Reform have risen so quickly in the polls. There is a sense we need a revolt against this system.
No, the reason you guys have risen in the polls is because the Conservatives have abandoned their values and their principle. They've abandoned their voters, and they have failed to address the rise of immigration in the UK. They've abandoned their core values and their voters, which is why a lot of people have turned to them, because not everyone has gone from Conservative to Reform. Some have gone from Conservative to Labour and whatnot. But yes, quite a big chunk of that have turned their backs on the Conservatives to go to Reform. Let's be very clear about that.
We need an electoral system where we get some proportional representation
in
Parliament.
This is the one time where I think we're all in agreement with Nigel Farage in saying we need a proportional representation without a shadow of a doubt. The electoral system that we have is unfair. People having to tactically vote in order to cast out a certain political party from their area or to give themselves the best shot is not right, because it means that people are not voting who they think who serves in their best interests. Proportional representation is needed, but there is other different forms of what kind of form of proportional representation of what we're going to have is obviously up for debate. But we do need a change in the electoral system, and that is something that I agree. The one time that I do agree with Nigel Farage, and I'm sure many of you will agree with me, that we need a proportional representation of some sorts here in England, without a doubt.
To break up the current model, to begin a new kind of politics in Britain, we might just get some real change. What we're being offered, frankly, are two parties promising the earth, and nothing much will change regardless of who gets in. Although I think the breach of trust on manifestos with the Conservatives means they're probably sunk below the waterline. New politics, fresh start. We want a revolt from the British people. That's what I'm after.
Angela,
I don't want a revolt per se, but yeah, the things he was saying about the Conservatives, yeah, really does hammer the home there.
Raina, has Labour gone back on any of its pledges?
Well, to be fair, it's always all about Nigel, and we've had this sort of clown personality before with Boris Johnson, who you talked about the pandemic, Penny, who was breaking lockdown rules and spending billions of pounds in our money on crony contracts.
Yeah. Let's not forget about Partygate. Yeah, let's just hammer the Conservatives. Yeah, 6 feet under.
When parties want your vote, they promise things. When they're elected, none of it gets
absolutely
done.
And Linda's absolutely right. And I was coming back to that point because that eroded people's trust. At a time when people wanted the government to do the right thing, they didn't.
Have you ever dropped any pledges?
They disrespected them. And we set out the pledges before the crash. The Tories have crashed the economy. We've been honest in this election. People talked about some of the things that they would like us to do, like the 2-child limit. We have been clear. We will not promise anything that we cannot fund, and we've been absolutely clear.
You could fund it. You're choosing not to.
The Tories have record number of tax hikes on working people of this country. Labour, if we get in, will not put taxes up for working people of this country.
And Labour won't put them up for millionaires.
I'm going to Penny Mordaunt, you've had your say on this.
Has been honest.
Carla, Penny Mordaunt, thank you. Carla Denyer, you're next.
He is going to put them up by £2,000.
Be quiet, Penny.
I'm stopping you. Carla Denyer.
Thank you.
That's your...
Linda, I share your frustration. When I was younger, I had little to no faith that politics had the potential to make the country a better place. But let's remember, politics at its root is about people. It's about people's lives, people's bank accounts, people's future, people's health and happiness. And that's why, after meeting some Green Party members in my 20s, I realised that the Green Party is different. That's why I joined. That's why I got involved. Now, as several of the other panellists have already pointed out, as Labour drop pledge after pledge, policy after policy, slide further and further towards the Conservatives so that you can barely get a cigarette paper between them, the argument for voting for a bit of diversity in the House of Commons becomes ever stronger. And in terms of answering your question, Linda, about parties keeping their promises, the Green Party, when I joined it in 2011, was a pretty small and young party, but we're coming of age. We have increased our number of councillors nearly fivefold over the last few local elections, and we're grateful to everyone who's put their trust in us.
The question was about pledges. Stephen Flynn.
If we want to talk about pledges, then in a Scottish context, I can provide you with a few that have been delivered. 100,000 children in poverty are being lifted out of... 100,000 children in Scotland are being lifted out of poverty thanks to what's called the Scottish Child Payment. It doesn't exist anywhere else on these isles. The SNP has put it into place. Our young people, of course, do not pay a single penny in tuition fees. We've got something which I know the audience in Scotland would love to have, which is a nationalised water company that delivers clean water.
Are there any pledges you haven't met in government?
The SNP have also delivered nationalised rail, 40% more affordable homes than in England, 70% more than in Wales. And ultimately, it's about keeping our promise to the Scottish people. But I would actually contest, I would say the Labour Party and the Conservative Party are being very honest with you about what the future holds. The problem is, it's £18 billion worth of public sector cuts.
Just not, because the question was on pledges. One of your pledges, wasn't it, that you would close the attainment gap in a decade between pupils from the richest and most deprived areas of Scotland? Today, it remains considerable.
And indeed, we're making significant progress in relation to that. But of course, poverty and the attainment gap are interlinked. And the levers of power over poverty are determined by Westminster, because all roads do indeed lead back to Westminster.
Rena Pureworth.
I think Linda's question is largely around integrity and the loss of trust. I've been around politics for around 30 years, 20 of that as a journalist. And as a journalist looking from outside, I could see the apathy and I could see the cynicism. You know, the cynicism driven by Downing Street COVID parties. You know, the cynicism driven by a leader of government in Wales accepting a £200,000 payment from a convicted environmental polluter who...
And that's a really nice... This was a great shot at the Welsh Labour leader. And that is incredibly embarrassing. And to put that on the debate stage, I think that was very good of him and needed to do so. Because at the moment, really, he hasn't really... Like, he's been okay so far, but he hasn't really shined like Daisy Cooper and Carla Venda, the Lib Dems, and the Greens, and Stephen Flynn has. So he needs to do more of this on the... he needs to do more of this if Plaid Cymru are to push out a lot more.
Who is looking for planning permission from the government and refusing to see that looks wrong in people's eyes. We need to rebuild that kind of trust. And two words, honesty and fairness. Honesty, you know, the unedifying rows between the Conservatives and Labour Party here on taxation this evening. We have to have honesty about taxation. Mm-hmm. We can't drive taxation forever down and expect to have high levels of public services, can we? And fairness, we have to have a system that protects people like you. Why should Rishi Sunak, on his £2 million income, largely from investments, pay less tax than you do on hard graft going out to work during the day? That's the kind of fairness, or the unfairness, I should say, within the taxation system
and I want to,
that really undermines trust.
I want to get in a word now from Daisy Cooper on this.
Nice ending there from him.
We heard promise after promise after promise from the Conservatives at the last general election. 40 new hospitals, 6,000 GPs, and all the rest. And the fact is that this Parliament has been characterised by law-breaking, by lying, and by the economic illiteracy of the mini-budget. And of all the things that the Conservatives have broken, the worst thing that I think they've broken is people's hope.
Do you remember going back on the tuition fees pledge?
Not wrong.
That's a sore subject for us, for sure. Like, that was a very difficult decision. But let's remember that it was the Conservatives who, in 2015, withdrew the maintenance grants for young people from the lowest backgrounds, which has now stopped many of them from going to university. Okay. But my point is that this election is about hope, and it is about change. Many of us do come into politics for the right reason. And for any of you who have seen the party political broadcast by Ed Davey talking about his experiences as a carer for his disabled son, you will be in no doubt that he is in politics for the right reason, and that we are committed to fixing the NHS.
Thank you all. And I'm going to go.
That's a very good, considering the shot by the host there, reminding of the pledge that they made in coalition. I think that was a very good bounce back from Daisy Cooper. It did hurt. It did hurt her performance there, her performance on the debate. But I think overall she shined. You know, watching this for a second time, she shined a lot more than I've realised. You know, I didn't really pay enough attention, I would say, yesterday watching it of her. But you know, being more focused now, and I can see she's been very, very good. And I don't think she's gotten enough credit for her performance. I think.
To our next question, which is from Lucy Hobday.
What matters to you more, economic growth or successful climate policy?
Thank you very much, Lucy, for that question. Nigel Farage.
Well, it depends what those climate policies are. And at the moment, we're pursuing completely unrealistic climate policies. I mean, the Labour pledge to decarbonise the grid by 2030 will not happen, just as the Conservative pledge to decarbonise the grid by 2035 will not happen. Not only is it impossible, it's actually unaffordable. So we have to be grown up and sensible. If we get new technologies that give us cheaper energy or better ways of manufacturing things, that's great. But what we're doing in this country is we're sacrificing economic growth. We've been massacring British manufacturing. And we say to ourselves, isn't it marvellous? We've reduced carbon emissions more than any other Western country, but we haven't. All we've done is to export carbon emissions when our steel works go to India or our car manufacture moves to China.
Now, while I completely, absolutely despise Nigel Farage, this point about the British steel manufacturers will hit home, especially to those in Scunthorpe, for those of the British steel industry there, and it will hit to the steel manufacturing that is it Swansea, I believe, there as well. You know, that will hit a lot of hard truths to those manufacturing industries and those workers there. That kind of rhetoric there from Nigel Farage will hit a few chords from people who understandably know what it is like for their industries who are suffering right now.
Or to Turkey, or wherever it is. We're living in a complete fool's paradise on all of this. I mentioned earlier to the lady at the back about the cost of living. You know, we've been chucking 20% on people's electricity bills now for 20 years to pay for very inefficient wind energy. So what's really happening with net zero, what's happening with the attempt to deal with climate change, not that we can, because we produce less than 1% of the world's carbon.
This is his excuse to say we don't need. This is his excuse of saying we don't need to contribute to climate, guys. We don't need to go green energy. We don't need to go net zero because we're a small island on this planet. Yeah, it's not our problem. We should just let America, Russia, China. We should let these big economies deal with climate. It's not our problem. This is essentially what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, like, this is not something we need to worry about. Let the bigger countries, let other partners deal with it. Let's just stick to what we know best, you know, because obviously we don't want to change things because it's a bit scary to go green, guys. We should just stick to the oil and gas and the coal stuff, guys. We should stick to what we know. That's what he wants. Yeah, he wants to stick to that. That's not what the next generation wants. We want to change to green, to green energy, green stuff. He does not want that.
Dioxide, and the Chinese are building 80 new coal-fired power stations every year.
Let me be clear about China. China has also built a lot of green stuff as well within their country as well. It's important to point that out as well.
We should not forget. We're going to need oil and gas for the next 30 years. We will be using oil and gas.
Thank you, Nigel Farage. I'm going to turn now to Carla Denyer next on this topic.
It's a bad policy.
Come on, Carla, knock this out.
What matters to you more, economic growth or successful climate policy, was the question. Carla Denyer.
Well, Nigel's going to keep your fact checkers busy for a little while. Nigel Farage has been misleading you. I'm an engineer. I used to work in the renewable energy sector. I know very well how wind farms work. So much of what he said there is simply untrue.
Subsidy.
Everyone knows that they can't trust the Conservatives or reform when it comes to climate, and that's part of the reason
Shut up, Nigel.
why the Conservatives are on their way out at the general election.
Hang on, let her answer.
But what people have been saying to me on the doorsteps in my home city of Bristol and elsewhere is that they're sorely disappointed in the Labour Party too, who've rolled back on their previously flagship climate investment pledge, one of the few good policies they had left.
I need to address this because until I've heard fact checking on this, I need to address this right here and there, guys. And I know not people are not going to like what I'm about to say, but Labour have not U-turned on the green investment plan. They have U-turned on the amount of money on it. It was originally 28 billion. It's now gone down to 22 billion roughly. They have not U-turned on the policy. They have U-turned on the funding. That is a very clear point. Is it right that they reduced the funding? No, of course not. But they have not U-turned on the policy. I just want to put that out there. It's a very clear point I need to make.
It's totally clear that we need to tackle the climate crisis and that doing so brings so many other benefits. Insulating our homes, a nationwide home insulation programme will bring down our bills, give us warmer, more comfortable homes.
Let me get Angela Rayner to respond to that. You've dropped that £28 billion a year green investment pledge earlier this year.
Well, we said we won't get to that point, but we will invest in our green prosperity plan because, as Luke...
And she will point out, obviously, that because of the mini budget, the crashing of the economy, they will argue that they can't. Their argument, Labour, not saying I agree with it, but their argument is that they don't have the money that they had before, which I don't agree at all. I do believe the money is there, but I do think it is a political choice of them not to keep to that £28 billion promise. If I'm honest, I do think they can keep to that promise if they really wanted to, but obviously what happened with the Liz Truss budget obviously has not helped either.
Lucy's question was put to us. Actually, we do need to look at economic growth, and it's not divorced from also looking at climate policies. We can't ignore the fact that we do have to change. And Nigel says we have to use oil and gas, and you're right, and we've recognised that will be part of the future, but it won't be forever. So we do have to have a green transition, and that's what our Green Prosperity Plan is all about creating those jobs, insulating homes, and having our self-reliant energy needs for the future through Great British Energy.
Stephen Flynn, the SNP.
Yeah, I think it's probably worthwhile starting by addressing the question head on. Net zero is economic growth, and it's not GB energy, it's Scotland's energy. It's Scotland's wind, it's Scotland's waves, it's Scotland that's going to provide the carbon capture and storage, and it's Scotland that's going to create the green hydrogen economy of the future. The Americans are investing in it, Europe's investing in it, the Middle East and beyond is investing in it, and the UK needs to invest too. The opportunities are huge, but we have to grasp them. And I'm afraid that what we're seeing at Westminster is a betrayal of the future generations. The Labour Party walking away from £28 billion worth of investment, which would have been transformative. With the SNP, you will get that commitment to a just transition, to reaching net zero, to protect and create new jobs for the future.
And what does that mean for oil and gas in the North Sea?
And I was actually just going to come to that helpfully enough, because what Angela has said there in relation to oil and gas, so there's three positions at the moment. There's a Conservative Party position that oil and gas is going to exist forever. I'm afraid it's not, and I can say that with some certainty given where, of course, I live. The Labour Party position is to shut down the North Sea oil and gas sector, which would risk 100,000 jobs. Not my numbers, independent experts in what the Unite Union call putting people on the scrap heap. There is a sensible middle ground which allows us to invest in net zero, protect the jobs of tomorrow, and that's what the SNP are focused on.
You weren't in agreement. You didn't want...
Can I just... obviously, now, I will say this, is that as we are making this transition from less reliance on oil and gas, we need to do this in such a way, guys, and I really think this is important. It's important that it's done in such a way that it minimizes the amounts of people losing their jobs. And in no way, shape or form do we ever want to do anything on the part of what Margaret Thatcher did when it came to the coal and mining industry, of just shoving so many people out on their arse when that happened. We don't ever want to do that. It needs to be a transitional period. The transition needs to be sped up from the less reliance on oil and gas and more into green energy, more wind, more solar and whatnot, and doing that. But we need to do it in such a way that it does the most minimal of damage to workforces, those who work in oil and gas industries. And it has to be a transition as we do so, because what you don't want is to knock a whole load of of people out on their backsides because we want to make this transition. It needs to be done in such a way that it protects those people who are working in those industries, and whether it is off with a pay package or transition them if they're a young worker, perhaps transferring them from, if there's somebody who's young working in the oil and gas industry and obviously that job is no longer available to them, giving them a job opportunity to train and work and be a part of the green energy, obviously, and being able to transfer them, train them up into a new different department of some sorts. I think if you could do it like that, and for people in the older generation, if they could obviously give them a pay packet of some sorts as well, I think that would help mitigate the losses of jobs. Obviously, I know these two are with Stephen and Angela are talking about something a bit different here, obviously. But in terms of obviously making that transition, you want to do it with the most minimum damage as possible, and that's where I believe it can be done. And it's just a case of it will take cross-party consensus in order to be able to make that transition, not just between Labour, SNP, or whoever, but all political parties in doing so, because nobody really wants here anyone to be kicked out of their jobs, regardless of who you are, where you're from, and whatever department of work you're in.
To put a levy on the oil and gas companies.
That's not true, Angela.
We talked about a transition.
You're talking about people lying, and that's not true.
We recognise that we need a transition from oil and gas, and that's what the Green Prosperity Plan is all about. And that's why that's why we put the levy on oil and gas companies to then have Great British Energy, which will give us the jobs for the future, hundreds of thousands of jobs across the UK, including in Scotland, where Great British Energy's headquarters will be based under a Labour government.
I'm going to now turn to Daisy Cooper.
If I may address that directly, because it was pointed towards me, that we should not be grateful in Scotland for a headquarters. It is our energy. 100,000 jobs are on the line as a result of your policy.
And there will be more jobs. There will be more jobs in Scotland under our plan. There will be more jobs than 100,000 in Scotland under Labour.
Can we bring Daisy Cooper in now? Thanks.
The Conservatives have moved the goalposts on climate targets. And what's that done is that has brought uncertainty to the heart of business and people who want to invest in our country and our climate transition. We are facing a climate and ecological emergency, but we don't have to make a choice between economic growth and tackling the climate emergency. We can do both, hand in hand. We really can. So take the example of having a home insulating scheme, an emergency home insulating scheme. That would not only reduce our energy usage, which would be good for the climate, it would reduce our energy bills, which would be good for our pocket, but it would also create a huge raft of new jobs as well, people who could actually go around insulating our homes. So we can do both of them hand in hand, and that's precisely what we need to do.
Okay. Runa Pureworth.
Nothing's more important than looking after the environment that you will be living in future. There is not a matter of making a choice in Wales, as it happens. We can create that economic prosperity that we need to build a brighter future for our country, hand in hand with looking after the environment. It is why Plaid Cymru calls for the devolution of the Crown Estate, as has happened to Scotland, but they won't do it to Wales, so that we can invest in making the most of our natural resources, in extracting power out of the wind and the tide. It's why we need to see Wales being paid the £4 billion that is owed of the investment in HS2 rail in England. Wales is contributing towards that, even though there's not a mile of that railway in Wales.
That's a very good point. Wales are paying into the HS2 and they're not getting anything for it. Absolutely. Very good point there. Joe Lefty, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well. And Jan Wallace there from France, good to see you there. And anybody else if I've missed in the chat, I think there were one or two. Stephen Ball as well, good to see you there. I hope you're doing well. Just Daisy Cooper obviously said the right things here, and I think he's making the fair points here as well.
And we need that in order to drive people onto public transport through investing in connectivity in Wales. And you know what? I'm not surprised hearing the Conservatives refusing to make that commitment to Wales, but it's galling when you have a Labour government in Wales that Labour won't either.
Penny Mordaunt.
Done well, both should help the other. What is critical, though, is if you want to reach net zero by 2050...
You don't vote Conservative.
You have to do it with people. You have to ensure that people can afford to get there. If you don't do that, you will fail to reach your targets.
Well, why is our energy bill so high? I wish someone could answer that question.
We are going to do this at a pace that people can afford. 2050 sounds a long way off, and in this election, you're looking at the next 5 years. At the end of this parliament, if they get in, you will not be able to buy a petrol car. If your boiler goes, you'll have to spend tens of thousands of pounds on a new heat pump, other things that need to be done to your home to convert it. My constituents cannot afford that. You heard about...
Because of your policy.
Here we go again. My constituents cannot afford that. I'm really standing up for my constituents. Please don't vote in Labour for my constituents. I'm standing up for my constituents. Once again, a desperate plea by Penny saying, please, please, please don't kick me out. I love my job. Sorry, I have to put that in, guys, because, yeah, the desperation for holding on is very, very clear here.
Energy. You heard about GB Energy. This is an energy company that your money is going to be put into that doesn't produce any energy at all. It doesn't produce a jot of energy. Oil and gas. This is the insanity of Labour's policy. They are expecting a load of people to invest in oil and gas at the same time saying they're not going to expand the sector. So they're not going to get the money in. And the final thing, if you do this too fast, all you do is destroy our supply chain. We should be building supply chains in this country to produce batteries.
I just want to address this question. Ruth, good to see you there. I didn't know you was on. I can't believe more of you didn't vote Carly. I voted for Carly as soon as that vote, well, are we talking about the live YouTube chat poll? I thought she did really well. Morden and Rayner were joint bottom there. Obviously, in regards to the YouTube chat poll, obviously, I can only put so many on there. But I thought she and Stephen Flynn were outstanding. And I think Daisy Cooper is actually running a good second at the moment. Angela Rayner's mixed at times, because there are times where she's getting hit and then there's times where she is fighting back, but it's very hard for her as well.
Batteries to do all sorts of things.
Let's get Angela to
speed Labour
let Angela respond, Penny Morden,
China,
to what you've
and that
said.
will kill off economic growth.
Let's hear the response.
I mean, it's astonishing.
How much energy is it going to produce?
It's astonishing because the Tories have been in power now 14 years.
How much energy is Great British Energy going to produce?
And we haven't had an industrial strategy or a manufacturing sector in the UK that is
you
about
just said
creating...
it's going to produce energy.
We've just listened to you, Penny.
I think it's pretty important. You're flogging an energy company to these guys. You're expecting them to put their money in.
She's mid-response. Let's hear it.
Penny, can you just be quiet and just let's just hear what Angela Rayner has to say, please? Like, you made your point that you desperately want your constituents to not vote you out, okay?
Thank you. Great British Energy will be an owned company by the UK taxpayers that will bring energy, clean energy, to the country, which will bring down bills and give people good skilled jobs.
How?
We've heard from the Tories for 14 years that they were going to do something about skills and manufacturing in this country. I asked the people to look at their record, and they constantly spout these lies that we're going to stop people's cars, that we're going to do this, going to do that, when really the reason they say that is their 14 years abstract failure.
And are your green policies going to be
You have failed the British people.
Are your green policies
You have
going to be in
failed
your
the British
manifesto?
people, and people can see that.
Because
I just want to respond to this comment because I think it's really important for those who are here, because some people haven't watched the debate and some people are watching it a few times. With Billy Kershaw saying most people will only watch the debate once to form an opinion. It's us only knows that are doing an autopsy. The reason why I don't do a live stream along with it live, guys, is because there's no guarantee that the video and feed that I have is going to be very good. And rather than watching it, rather than doing it live with you guys, watching it live and then doing a watch back on it gives me time to think about what was said, who said what, and allows me to think more of my opinion rather than thinking straight off the bat of what my form of my opinion is. Like I gave earlier an example on this live stream about Daisy Cooper. I thought she, like looking back now, so far of what we've seen watching this again, I thought Daisy Cooper was a lot better than what I initially thought of this debate. You know, I talked a lot about Carla and Stephen Flynn, obviously, but I thought that she really shined a lot more than I've generally thought, and I thought and yes, we are analysing it a lot deep, but I also say to people is obviously because we are into politics, to try and put yourself in the shoes of those who aren't really into politics and what the average person on the street thinks of these debates.
You currently can't afford to pay for them. That's where that £2,000 comes from.
Oh,
We're going to have to pay.
And I'm going to turn to
on their green policies, and they're going to hit you on the cost.
And I'm going to turn to the next question at this point. And the next question comes.
Oh dear. They disagree. They agree.
The next question.
Let's
Quiet, Nigel.
It's from Nick O'Donnell.
As a father with a young son about to start secondary school, I'm concerned about him going out on his own. I'm particularly worried about knife crime. How will the parties make sure he's safe?
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Donnell. So how will the parties protect future generations like Nick O'Donnell's young son, who's about...
Just so you guys know, after this question is answered, I'm going to be playing another funny video because I'll need to use the bathroom. Sorry.
...about to start secondary school. Carla Denyer.
Nick, we all have the right to feel safe in our homes and on our streets. My home city of Bristol has seen an epidemic of knife crime. One of my colleagues' friends was one of those victims, so this strikes very close to home for me. There are obvious things that could be done in terms of making sure that there's more officers out and about, but the other parties will also, I expect, tell you that they'll be tough on crime.
How many more police officers would you want as you've brought policing into it?
Our manifesto will be out soon, but the broad points I can cover now. Tough on crime is a rhetoric that we hear a lot from other parties.
Yes.
But the reality is that not all crime can be tackled by being tough. And that's something that the Green councillors in Bristol, the largest council in the country that's Green-led, are prioritising. Because the causes of knife crime are complex, but they include the fact that a generation of young people are growing up without access to the services they need. Youth centres are being closed, services that they need to support them.
Okay.
She's a bit hesitant here on her questioning here. Like the word that comes to my mind with her, with what she should have really said was rehabilitation. More like even I know. I feel like she was struggling to try and find her right words here, but I think most of us would get the gist of what she was saying, but. I think, yeah, it started well, but I just feel like...
Question specifically on knife crime, which is up in England and Wales by 8% since 2019. Nigel Farage, how would you protect?
Stop and search. We know the areas in which knives are most prevalent. Stop and search. And, of course, we don't do it. Oh, gosh, if this...
Yeah, because stop and search definitely works, guys. Stop and search has definitely reduced crime in this country. Yeah, because it's not like the Conservatives haven't been pushing this on the police force. Yeah, has stop and search really made a difference, guys? Has it stopped crime? Has it stopped youngsters carrying knives? Has stop and search been the core solution to knife crime in this country? Answers on a postcard, please. Just Super Tiny, good to see you there. None of the politicians answered the questions apart. None of the politicians answered the questions apart from flipping Farage, says Super Tiny there. Jan Wallace says, it's a good format. I had to switch over from Labour Social TV because I got fed up with Graham talking over everyone. Although I dislike someone on the panel, you have to listen to what they have to say. Yeah, exactly. Like obviously, I'm not speaking for Graham and Labour Social, but for me, like, if I'm going to speak, I'm going to pause it, guys. I don't really want to talk over them because it's not just because obviously you guys will be listening to what they're saying, and obviously, if you want to hear I want to give my thoughts as well. So, and I think that's really important, even if you fundamentally disagree. Like, there are times on the debate between Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak, I didn't like things that there were things that I wanted to hear what Rishi Sunak had to say on them. So, but anyways, let's carry on.
Area has got a high proportion of people from the black and ethnic minority communities. They might call us racist. We've got to stop doing this. We've got to completely forget the colour of people's skins, treat everybody equally. But we must do stop and search. We must do it in a very, very tough way. We have to have proper sentences. And it's...
Yeah, well, the problem with proper sentences, Nigel, is that we have a broken court system, but nobody brings that up in this topic, which I think is really important as well. But I do agree that it needs to be more equality. But again, how do you do that? This is where I come into the whole topic about, and I've talked about this till the God's green earth, about how the police system has failed institutionally in particular in England.
But one area, isn't it? I mean, you can go shoplifting now, any of you. You can go out and nick up to 200 quid's worth without being prosecuted.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it is a very sad situation that people are able to steal and get away with it in the way they do. But I do think this is a bit of rhetoric toning to appeal to certain sections of the audience out there as well from Nigel.
We are seeing a decline, a societal decline of law and order in this country. And frankly, government and the police forces have been too scared to do what needs to be done. It's yet another area of Britain that is broken and needs radical surgery.
Daisy Cooper.
I know many parents who are really very scared about the safety of their children. It's not only a big issue here in London, but particularly in the home counties, on county lines, there's a big issue with knives as well. I think we need to change the model of policing, and we need to get back to good old-fashioned community policing, where the police know their communities, where the communities know their police, where community groups, where faith groups, where local families all work together and they get their intelligence from the ground up. That's been all but wiped out in parts of our country. There's been cuts of 4,500 PCSOs as well. And let me say about stop and search in particular.
Just before she says about stop and search, I really agree with this from a local point of view, because every local area is different. I 100% agree that there needs to be better communication, better local things between the police communities. Everything here Daisy Cooper has said up to this point, 100% agree with. It really does help, and one thing which is broken with our police force is trust. Yeah, people need to have that trust. There's lots of people out there who just will not call 999 for help because they simply do not trust the police. Yeah, that trust has been fundamentally broken. We know that trust has been fundamentally broken, and one of the ways to do that is to build those amends is from a community base, from a community point of view. And Daisy Cooper is absolutely right in saying that should be done. That Pagua says it's not racist to point out facts. Absolutely not. It's not racist to point out facts. No, 100%. It's true that proportionately black and ethnic minorities are proportionately targeted by stop and search. There's nobody's debating that. I know you're not saying that, but it is absolutely right that that is a fundamental fact, that people of different colour of their skin are being targeted by stop and search, are being stopped by police more than white people. There's absolutely no question about that. It's not right in any way, shape or form. It needs to be more equally, and that is why there needs to be fundamental changes within the police force. But I have stated on numerous occasions, I'm not going to go into it now because we're already going quite long already, guys. But for me, the reform of the police forces is not enough for me. It is dismantling the police force and building a new one from scratch, I believe, is the better option, rather than just reforming the police force.
Stop and search can be a useful tool in some circumstances, but suspicionless stop and search, which has been used to target particular groups of people, is not valid and should not be used. So where there is a suspicion of somebody, it can be used, but it has to be used in a targeted way based on evidence, not on profiling.
We do know the areas in which knife crime is the most prevalent, and there is no question, that we are scared.
And those are the areas with the most inequality, which is why tackling inequality is an important part of the answer.
That may be what you have to do.
That's a great, and I have to say that's a great point by that is a great point out there by Carla there, that the equality, you have to tie equality in the cost of living crisis to crime as well, because obviously when people are desperate, when people have nothing, this is where they end up turning towards the life of crime when they have absolutely nothing. This is exactly true. We have to remember that people who turn to crime some people who are turning to crime are because they've got nothing else to lose. They've got nothing. So
to solve the problem ultimately by giving people
Do we
equality
not
of
want to
opportunity.
solve the problem ultimately? Is that not the point?
But you can't give people equality of outcome. We're scared of our own shadow here. We're not going to deal with the question unless we stop being scared of ourselves.
Okay.
We go out and do what needs to be done.
Penny Mordaunt, how would you protect future generations from knife crime?
Well, over the last 14 years, if you leave out computer crime and online fraud, we have more than halved crime, 55%. And
This
we have
question
now
is about
a
knife
record
crime.
number of police. Violent crime is down by 44%, but we have hotspots and knife crime in particular. London is top of the list. We have put more
Blame
police on the
Sadiq Khan,
streets.
this is
We
what
have
it is.
met our manifesto commitment of 20,000 more police officers. We have record numbers. And where you have Conservative police crime commissioners like my area in Hampshire,
That's fine, Mad Monk. That's fine. I trust your judgment anyway. In ED, so that's fine.
you have local bodies
Actually,
on the
West
beat.
Midlands
We've
has
got
the
a-
highest rate of knife crime. And
Absolutely.
that has
That's
had
a Labour police crime commissioner.
That did
as
until
well.
recently
If you
have a
are-
Conservative mayor.
If you are in, but he wasn't responsible for police. There was a police crime commissioner, and it was Labour. If you live in a Labour area, you are 40% more likely to be a victim of crime. That is a shocking statistic. We need more police, and we need police who are embedded in communities that can follow up with people. If kids are doing stuff, they follow.
Well, I wonder who's been in charge for the last 14 years that could have done more of this. I do wonder that, guys. Can anybody answer that? Answers on a postcard, please.
Up with the school, they follow up with the parents. That's what Conservative police crime commissioners are doing. In Hampshire, we've got 600 extra officers. Every single one of my wards has a named Bobby.
Okay.
People know, build up intelligence. That is how we get crime down, and we have got it down by 55%.
Angela Rayner?
Well, Nick, thanks for the question. And I think our young people don't feel safe either at the moment, never mind us as parents. And I say that I've got a 15 and 16-year-old sons at home. And I think it's really sad when I go around my schools and I talk to young people, they're frightened of what they think is crime on their streets. And young people who are worried about knife crime generally tend to carry a knife to protect themselves, but are more likely to actually be involved in knife crime because of that. We've got to educate our young people, and that means that we've got to have those neighbourhood police. We've had them cut. We said we put 13,000 more neighbourhood police on the street. Penny talked about 20,000 police officers. They cut 22,000. That's a minus 2,000 in my mathematics. So they haven't protected.
That's not true. We've got a record number of police officers.
We have seen the decimation of our neighbourhood policing, and actually when police are in the neighbourhoods, they get to know the young people, they can work with them, and we can really get our young people feeling safe on the streets again, because I think that is one of the real scandals at the moment, is our young people feel that they will be protected if they carry a knife. That is completely untrue, and we've got to educate them and make them feel safe again.
Very well said from Angela Rayner. I don't think anyone could dispute what she said there. I do think education really does play a factor into teaching younger people the importance of not carrying a knife. And it is true that many youngsters carry it because they don't feel safe on the streets. And she's absolutely right in doing so.
Rena Pureworth.
Penny Mordaunt was referring to some areas having higher levels of crime than others. Let's be straight about it. It's areas which are suffering most poverty that will suffer the highest levels of crime. It is people who have less hope who are most likely to end up leading criminal lives. I absolutely agree that we need to look back through the education system. We have to make it very, very clear to our young people that there can be zero tolerance on knives. I was attacked as a teenager. Luckily, no knives. My son was attacked a couple of years ago. Again, luckily, no knives involved. But it makes me too very, very worried about the future for young people. But for us in Wales, what's absolutely key is that we bring the decision-making closer to communities such as yours, so that we can see the devolving of justice and policing, so that we can devise systems that work for Wales. Angela's Labour colleagues in Wales agree with me on that. Again, Labour at a UK level, hoping to become the next government, say no chance.
Briefly, Carla, before I turn to Stephen Flynn.
I've signed the Citizens UK pledge for a counsellor in every school to help with young people's mental health and with youth violence. Will the others on the panel today join me?
answers. Would you raise your hand to that, guys? I would. Guys, make sure you answer the live YouTube chat poll as well, guys. If you haven't already, contribute to that as well. It'd be greatly appreciated.
Well, we already committed that we'd have mental health services in schools. That's one of our commitments.
That's a very good, and yes, they did say they would do that, and I totally am on board with Labour doing that to help tackle the mental health issues with youngsters, and I think that will help a big thing.
Stephen Flynn, on the broader question of policing, police officer numbers in Scotland are at the lowest.
Now, just before we talk about Scotland here, Dave McGuinness, our expert in Scotland. This is it's just saying what the F are these bans are about real crime, including fraud. It's a 44-year low in Scotland. The problem with this debate is that they're England-centric. It is more England-centric. There's no question about that. It is. I'm not gonna argue that point at all. But crime is obviously much better in Scotland than it is in England. I don't think anyone's going to be arguing that.
Level since 2008. Now, police in Scotland are not investigating every low-level crime.
And thankfully, of course, Nick, in relation to your direct question, if I remember the figures correctly, serious knife crime in Scotland is comparatively low compared with many other areas. Now, that's not to be complacent, because as a dad, I share your concerns. I worry about what the future holds for my kids. But ultimately, the solution lies in what Reen has said. What we need to do is make sure that we are investing in the areas that need support the most. Poverty is a major driver behind this, and Westminster has failed generations of young people by not providing them with the hope for a better future, so they turn to violence when they perhaps shouldn't. And I think that's something we should all reflect upon going into this general election, where £18 billion of public sector cuts are coming down the line, and a future Labour government has no answers.
But this question was about how the parties are going to protect future generations, like Nick O'Donnell's son. How can he feel confident of that if someone in a similar position in Scotland see the police not investigating every crime?
Well, of course, as I've already outlined, as I understand it to be the case, serious knife crime instances in Scotland are comparatively low in comparison to elsewhere, but our police officer numbers are, of course, still higher than when we came into government, again, if I understand correctly. But there's a wider picture to be had here, and that means police officers working with local communities, working with schools, working with our young people to offer them hope and optimism for the future. And I'm afraid that Westminster doesn't offer that hope and optimism right now.
Okay. Nigel Farage.
Yeah, look, again, I just think our whole approach to crime is wrong. Low-level crime is rapidly growing. Street-level crime is rapidly growing. And the old theories about New York and how it was cleaned up, it was if you deal with the stuff at the bottom, i.e. people carrying knives, shoplifting, graffiti, broken windows, you might just deal with the more serious stuff. I think we also should add into all of this the blight of drugs and drug gangs in our cities. That whole culture, it has been absolutely disastrous, and nobody has yet found the answer to that.
Okay, well, that was our final question, so I'm going to thank you all for your responses. To all of those here in the audience who've
We'll do the final statements in just a moment, guys. I'm going to play the other funny video. I know we've been going on for quite a while, guys. I wanna do the funny statements, but I'm just going to play one more funny video for you guys. I want to say thank you, everyone. We've got the final statements, and I think they're really important. So don't leave yet. They are going to be interesting to hear. And then obviously we'll talk about our final thoughts on there. I will end the live YouTube chat poll in just a moment, but if you haven't already, please hit the like button, share it across social media if you haven't already, so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. So please, if you can do any of those things, greatly appreciate. Any super chats or memberships obviously really does help as well. So I've got another funny video for you guys, just to kind of put a bit of laughter or a bit of difference in all of this. What's that? It's another Jonathan Pye video. Yes, it is, guys. Yes, it is.
For over a generation, it has nationally been the second biggest concern of most voters. So in the second part of our series of election specials, tonight we're looking at immigration. Immigration. It'd be worse under Labour, though, wouldn't it? Immigration be worse under Labour, Christ. Worse, obviously. Immigration, worse under Labour. I've got all these wankers on my Twitter feed saying, well, it'd be worse under Labour, wouldn't it? I mean, how do you know? How the fuck did you figure that one out? Oh, it'd be worse under Labour, immigration. That statement implies that the Tories have had some sort of control on the situation, that they've been taking immigration seriously for the past 14 years, rather than using it as a slogan to keep the flag shaggers happy. Oh, tough on immigration. Oh, taking back control. Stop the boats. 14 years of tough talk and performative cruelty, and yet illegal immigration hasn't been this out of control since the Vikings invaded, probably. If a single Tory this election campaign promises they'll control our borders and get net migration under control, they are lying to you. In 2010, David Cameron promised to get net migration down to tens of thousands. It didn't happen. 2015, the pledge was repeated. It didn't happen. 2017, Theresa May promised the same. 2019, same again. Yet net migration is now double what it was in 2015. The year before, we all voted to take back control, presumably, of our borders. They've spent their years in government workshopping and blue sky thinking the most cruel and unusual ways to punish asylum seekers, rather than simply processing their applications in a timely manner, which would be cheaper, easier and more efficient. Let's stick them on a barge with an amusing name. Yeah. Let's infect them with deadly Legionella. Let's force them all into the sex trade. Let's just watch them all drown. Tory policy has for some time been the following: deliberately and knowingly bring the immigration service to its knees so that asylum seekers have next to no reasonable means to claim legal asylum, so they have to do it illegally. Then we can publicly punish and shame them, and that will put others off coming here. I mean, it sounds like a plan, but it's a plan that has not worked, clearly. We were told that Brexit would stop illegal immigrants. We are told that if we left the European Court of Human Rights, that would solve our problems, that changing the definition of asylum because it's exploited by lefty lawyers will solve the problem. We were told that ending freedom of movement was the magic bullet. We were told that that barge would stop the boats. And even though UK ministers were warned by their own advisors that the Rwandan government tortures and kills political opponents, we were told that spending £120 million not to send anyone to Rwanda was a sensible policy for a happier Britain. None of it has worked. The only way to take back control of our borders is an immigration service that is properly funded, free of expensive gimmicks, and that is fit for purpose. Nothing you do will work until the system is repaired. And I'm not saying open up our borders. I'm not saying let the fuckers in and take our jobs. I'm not saying we should encourage young men from minorities to join a grooming gang. I'm saying treat the subject with the seriousness it deserves. It's complex, it's divisive and difficult to solve. And just referring to immigrants as swarms, an invasion, a flood of marauders doesn't achieve anything. The hostile environment policy doesn't work. Just causing fear and resentment isn't an immigration policy. In government, both Labour, when they were in government all those many years ago, and the Tories could have chosen stronger immigration control, but they didn't. Why? Because immigration actually makes life easier for politicians. Immigration makes it easy for politicians not to invest, not to increase wages, not to spend on education. It allows politicians to avoid responsibility and avoid investing in our children's future, because if you've got a shortage of nurses or teachers or scientists or engineers, you can just get a load of foreign ones in instead. So whilst 30,000 people crossed the channel last year, grabbing all the headlines, this government issued 1.4 million visas. Look over here. Look over here at these boats. Look at this problem that we've created. In you come. Quick, in you come. Look at this. But whatever you think about the state of this country's immigration policy, or lack thereof, what I do know is this: not a single person who arrived in the UK on a small boat is more responsible for the cost of living crisis, the state of our economy, the state of our schools and hospitals, record child poverty, record homelessness, record inflation, than the greedy, incompetent motherfuckers who have been running the country for the last decade or so. A change of government, please. Well, an array of opinions there, but all agree when it comes to immigration, something needs to change. Back to you, Sophie.
Very nice from Jonathan Pye there. That was his one on immigration, and I'm sure that's we'll be hearing more of these in the run-up towards the general election as well. I hope you guys found that interesting from Jonathan Pye. Obviously, I know what he said in the past about Scotland was, and the Scottish bill was not exactly in his interest, but it was certainly interesting to say the least. Right, let's go back to the debate for the last closing statements, guys, because I know we want to hear them. So let's hear what they've all had to say in their final statements.
Shared their questions with us, but it is time now to go to the party's final thoughts, and for that they have been given 30 seconds for a final thought from each of them, and the order of those final thoughts, those final statements, was chosen earlier by lot. So let us go to the first of those, and it's from Angela Rayner.
After 14 years of chaos, it's time for change. Keir Starmer has changed the Labour Party. Our fully costed plan for Britain will secure our economy, will bring down NHS waiting times with 40,000 new appointments every week, and will secure our borders, not with gimmicks, but with a credible plan to smash the gangs. We'll create great British energy, bringing down bills and creating thousands of well-paid jobs. We'll boost neighbourhood police to tackle antisocial behaviour, and we'll hire 6,500 new teachers. So if you want change, vote Labour.
Good speech.
Stephen Flynn.
The Tories are finished, so the choice is simple. Who do voters best trust to put Scotland's interests first in Westminster? Now, in the SNP, we know what it is that we believe in. Investment in our NHS, action on the cost of living crisis, rejoining the European single market, and creating economic growth by delivering on net zero. Unlike the Labour Party, we will never, ever get comfortable with the Westminster status quo. We will always fight for Scotland's right to choose its own future. So on the 4th of July, vote to put Scotland's interests first. Vote SNP.
Good speech.
We can all see the Tories are toast, thank goodness. But we deserve better than a Labour Party that is offering more of the same. Angela says that Keir has changed the Labour Party, and she's right. He's changed them into the Conservatives. Frankly, our children deserve better. The Green Party is on the cusp of breaking through in seats up and down the country. Green MPs will never stop defending our future, protecting our NHS from privatisation and pushing the next Labour government to do better. We deserve real hope and real change. Vote Green.
Very nice. Very nice.
This evening, I've been able to stand up for Wales, yes, but also for a different kind of politics that hopefully has been able to feel relevant wherever you are. My vision is a positive one. This isn't as good as it gets. The Conservatives are gone. They are finished, and it can't come quickly enough. But there is a real chance here to send Labour a message too. Stop taking Wales for granted. It is true that communities throughout the UK feel as if they are being ignored. Well, I won't let Wales be. So vote Plaid Cymru on the 4th of July.
I thought his speech was okay. I didn't think his performance was as good as other people, if I'm honest.
Mordaunt.
We've come through tough times, and now there is a choice to be made. You can choose Angela Rayner and Keir Starmer and get higher taxes, higher bills, and have your pension raided. Or you can stick with us and the plan that is working. We will cut your taxes. We will protect your pension.
Plan?
And we will
What plan?
defend this nation. For a more secure future, vote Conservative.
Daisy Cooper.
Our country is crying out for change, and it's not hard to see why. Under this Conservative government, everything feels broken. Nothing works. Under Ed Davey's leadership, the Liberal Democrats will fix our NHS and social care, tackle the cost of living crisis, and put an end to the scandal of filthy raw sewage being dumped in our rivers and streams. every vote for the Liberal Democrats is a vote for a fair deal and a vote to help deliver the change that we all so desperately want and need.
Well said.
Nigel Farage.
Unlike the other 6, I don't need an altar cue. I'm here because I believe in what I believe in. Our politics isn't working. You've heard these pathetic arguments tonight between the two big parties. Really, there isn't much difference. But electorally, Labour are going to win. The debate is who forms the opposition in the next parliament? Who fights for the rights of ordinary British people? Who fights to control our borders? Who fights for men and women running small businesses? Reform UK is about to become a political phenomenon, an historic one. So I urge you, join the revolt.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. And with that, we ended that.
And that's the end of that, guys. Yeah, that last one was a bit awkward, I would say. Was a bit awkward, if I'm honest, from Nigel Farage, I have to say. Just before I come to you guys in the chat, I just want to say thank you everyone who cast their votes on the YouTube live chat poll there, asking who performed best at the debate. I can only pick 3 other people there: Stephen Flynn, Nigel Farage, and Carly Denver. Most of you say 50% saying Stephen Flynn. 25% of you think Nigel Farage did well, performed best. 17% said Carla Denver, and 7% of you said other. So quite interesting there that quite a few people obviously thought that some of you guys thought Nigel Farage did well. There was 1 or 2 polls who thought Nigel Farage performed best. I don't agree with that assessment. I thought Nigel Farage was not the best. In terms of best of the performance of the night. I would say it was a close tie. I would say between Carla Denver and Stephen Flynn. I thought were absolutely outstanding. I thought both in their respectives. I would say there was a little bit of jittery there, but having watched it twice now, I have to say Daisy Cooper I thought was absolutely brilliant for the Liberal Democrats. I thought she really did really well. You know, looking at it, watching it again, guys, I really think this was a good night for the Lib Dems as well. I think for her. And obviously bringing up the sewage thing, that will obviously hit a few home runs as well. For the Plaid Cymru person, I just don't think he did enough at all for Wales's position. I just don't think he said enough about the good things that Plaid Cymru has done for the people of Wales. I didn't hear enough of that for that. Now, while of course I'm not into Welsh politics, I think I said this last night on the Discord chat. I think there was a real opportunity missed there for Plaid Cymru to really make their case to the people of Wales. There, obviously, they have their own Welsh. They will have their own debate later this month. On the Friday the 21st of June will be the Wales will have their debate. Just looking at the calendar there, so they'll obviously have their say there. But I just think that was a missed opportunity for Plaid Cymru in my honest opinion. As for the two major parties, the polls are still very much in Labour's favour, and it really didn't really matter to say whether or not it really doesn't really matter of how Angela Rayner would perform. It was just a case of just getting through it. And there were times she didn't look great, and there were times I thought she looked okay in terms of performance. Penny Mordaunt obviously wasn't so much fighting for the Conservatives. I think she was just more fighting for her survival, her personally, rather than the party itself. And it was weird that some people were clapping for Penny Mordaunt. That did kind of raise a few eyebrows, I would say, in that as well. Let's have a quick look, see what some of you guys were saying in the chat, what some of you guys thought of that. SNP, Greens, Lib Dems, Welsh Party, Labour, my top SNPs, Greens, Lib Dems, Welsh Party, Labour, my top forces as to Keir. Sorry, my top 5 says that. Carla owned it, says one angry pagan. Reg says Farage just attacked the other party politics. Didn't actually hear him offer any solutions. Yeah, he didn't offer a lot of solutions to it. It was just a more of like, I'm different than the rest. He's trying to be more. It's definitely that Trumpian vibe that you felt from him, I would say, in that. Wolfpet says the 25% who thought Nigel Farage performed best have been remarkably silent in the chat. Sure, it's not the same person styling in under multiple accounts. It's very rare that it's rare that I've had that many people vote in a live YouTube chat poll. But it's just I put Nigel Farage in there because obviously the reason I put him in there and not anybody else in those choice of 3 slots was because there were actual polls out there saying that he performed well, which is why I put him in there. Daisy got that tough question on intuition fees, but handled it well, says Mark. I agree. People are entitled to their opinion, says Alistair Keir, 100%. Nigel made a couple of good points, but struck clock is right twice a day, says Mark. Yeah, there were some good points from Nigel Farage, but overall, I think a lot of people did not like a lot of things that he had to say. Nigel got the most applause, says Ideologist there. Penny stood up and farted, says Sir Larry the Cat. I wouldn't know, I wasn't in the room. In my biased opinion, it's Stephen, Carla, Daisy, so SNP's Grid Lib Dems in my top 3. International Language of Dance says, be great if the smaller parties were able to form a coalition. It would be. I think it would be very nice. I think there's a lot more closer ties between the Lib Dems and Greens than I thought. I think you could definitely hopefully see them working together more in the future. But we'll definitely see. It depends on what the outcome of the general election would be. I thought we voted for the party, not personalities, said Reg. That is true. That is true, and that does play a factor into it as well. But I also think, unfortunately, because of the day and age, personalities do play a part in this as well. But yeah, it is a bit of that as well. Dave McGuinness reminded me that what Carla Denver said, that she is correct. Keir Starmer did turn them into the Conservatives. Mark Alisi said, I've been very impressed with Carla and Daisy. I agree. I did not pay enough attention to Daisy the first time watching it, but the second time watching it, I was very impressed with her performance. I was very, very impressed with her performance. Reg said, I've met refugees who are desperate to work, but the current system forbids it until their claim has been restored. They are kept in limbo by the broken system. 100%. It is a terrible, terrible system, and my heart goes out to them who actually want to contribute to this economy and not allowed to, given what the Conservatives have done. 100% agree. It's not right. Jan Wallace says, you got to love pie. Yeah, we needed a bit of a break-up, to be fair. Alistair Keir says, it feels safer on the ground in Scotland, in my opinion, but work is still needed. Yeah, like I said, Scotland, I'm sure those who speak for Scotland say it's not perfect. There's always room for improvement, and obviously the ambition, the long-term goal is independence for the majority of those in the chat. They want that. They want that to have that vote, have that say it again, and I believe they will get it at some point. And it's just a case of when. And also, which also was highlighted as well, no mention of Scottish independence at all from Stephen Flynn or from any of the parties as well. So because that was not brought up as well. I would say, Hidden Figures is a brilliant film, says Jan Wallace. If you don't believe what a politician is saying, go to the direct source. That's exactly it. Yeah, go. Don't just take word for mouth. Go out there and have a look at it go for yourself there. I like the way they talk. Nothing answers and words been, says Stephen Ball there. Let's scroll down and see what you guys are saying. Wolfpet says my top 3 too, exactly that order. Wolfpet is saying it's in agreement with Alistair Keir. I think you're in agreement with Alistair Keir on there. Stephen Ball says, don't you want to join the EU? We do want to join the EU. The problem is that we don't have politicians talking enough about it. Hence why I'm glad Stephen Flynn brought it up, and he got that applause because people are concerned about Brexit, without a shadow of a doubt. I'd be happy if the UK rejoined the single market. Yeah, we do need to rejoin the single market. Mark Elise says, Carla, Daisy, Stephen, Ruth, Angela, Nigel, Penny are my rankings there. You thought Penny Mordaunt was worse than Nigel. I agree. Penny Mordaunt was the poorest, I think, out of all of them on the night. I agree with that. I just think her just flat out lying and talking about tax cuts when people are already struggling as it is. That's not, it's just not. That's just not helping people right now. SNPs and Greens were both very good, says Reg. One Angry Pagan says, honestly, I want to see more Green MPs in Parliament. Many of my fellow pagans are Green in their ideology, and they're half to start somewhere there. If I have anything to do with it, she will lose her seat, says Jan Wallace. International Language of Dance said it was a relief to hear more progressive voices. It was nice to hear that as well. Strange new Tories want to rejoin EU when EU is going far right, says Stephen Ball there as well. Scotland wants to rejoin the EU, says Alistair Keir. Yep, absolutely. He's made that. And Stephen Flynn made that very clear as well. So guys, just before you guys head out, I'll just let you guys know. Obviously, I've got Speak of My Mind episodes will be dropping in at 2 p.m. here on the channel, and then I'll have another video dropping at 8 p.m. for you guys as well. Tomorrow, I'm not going to be doing any premiere or live stream. I'm going to leave it just because I need a bit of a breather after this, guys, because I've never gone this long before on a live stream, as you guys, I'm sure for those who've been following me for a while, obviously this has done a number on my voice. I will be back on Monday with the Snowflakes point. We'll cover the latest news and whatnot on the election and any other bits. Mainly it'll be on the election. I will also address my thoughts with you guys about my conversation with Bola Hatman as well, because I know some people wanted to hear my thoughts on that. I haven't discussed that yet. So if you guys want to hear that, I'll give my thoughts on how I thought that conversation went as well. But I'll just show you guys the calendar. Well, the calendar here, just so you guys know, if you want to mark some of these in the calendar, guys, yeah, for like debates and whatnot. So what date are we on? We're on the 8th of June. So this Tuesday coming up is the Scotland debate at 8 p.m. That's on the BBC, for those wondering. On Thursday, the 13th of June, is the 7 political party debate on ITV there. And then on the 18th of June, Tuesday, guys, that is the deadline to register to vote. So make sure you've registered. Make sure you get people. Always try to encourage people around you, friends and family and whatnot, to vote as well. That's really, really important. On the 19th, the next day, guys, if you can't vote in person, that's the deadline for the postal vote. That's Wednesday, the 19th of June. So if you can't vote in person, make sure you do postal vote. On the 20th of June, guys, the BBC, there'll be a question time special. A BBC debate with 7 parties there. On Friday, the 21st of June, is the Welsh debate. So if you guys want to look into that, that'll be on the 21st of June. And then the final debate between Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak, that will be on the 26th of June. That will be on the BBC. So there is one more debate on the 27th on Thursday, and that is for Northern Ireland specifically. So if you wanted, for those in Northern Ireland, obviously wanted to see specifically the parties in Northern Ireland, that is on the 27th there, guys. So hopefully that, guys, if you've got them written down, hopefully that will help in terms of things. I still haven't covered the original Scottish First debate. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I don't know if I'm going to cover this one either, because I'm not into Scottish politics. It's more something of David McGuinness's department. But we'll see anyway. But Alistair Keir, thank you so much for the 5 gifted memberships. I really appreciate that. I just want to say before we head out, guys, thank you guys so much for staying along. It's been over 3 hours I've been here. I'm hungry. My missus is upset that I haven't seen her for 3 hours. So I want to say, guys, thank you all so much for coming along. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you for participating in the live YouTube chat. Thank you for those who've given super chats. Thank you, Alistair Keir, for the gifted memberships. Thank you for the moderators, Mad Monk there, for dealing with any kind of trouble as well. So moderators, thank you guys for looking out for the chat as well. Greatly appreciate a much bigger audience today than normal. But like I said, I'll be back on Monday with a live stream. So if you guys want to come and hang out there, you are more than welcome to do so. But just before you head out, guys, I just have to do my one final thing. Oh, the gang here as well. I have to do this, guys. I have to turn Ollie around. This is Ollie our octopus. I have to turn him around and smile whenever we get any super chats or gifted memberships. We always have to do that. So for those who don't know, this is Pingu, who is the communist Russian spy, as my chat likes to call. This is Cash Dummy, the Cookie Monster, and Ollie, the octopus there, sitting on top of the orb. So if you guys want to come and say hello to them more often, feel free to come and join us on the live streams. The schedules are up on the homepage as well. But just before you go, guys, if you can, just do one more thing for me. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Be greatly appreciated. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or you can join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.